Chapter 2763. My young friend, the ancestral court of Yuan's sect will openly recruit successors in 3 years. Emo Lanshan smiled. If you want, I can recommend you. Yi Chunjuan's eyes lit up and he said, Brother Lin, I'm looking forward to meeting you in the sect. It's best if you can come to the 9th peak. Lin Sun was surprised and said, Let me think about it. Emo Lanshan nodded and handed a jade pendant to Lin Sun. If you want, you can take this jade pendant. Lin Sun looked at the jade pendant. Lin Sun looked at the jade pendant and saw the words Emo Lanshan, Elder of the 9th Peak, carved on it. Thank you. Lin Sun cupped his hands and turned to leave. Yi Chunjun wanted to say something, but was stopped by Emo Lanshan. Emo Lanshan spoke in an unfathomable tone. Let him go. You will definitely meet again in the future. Yi Chunjun said, If a peerless figure like him can enter the ancestral court of Yuan's sect, he will shine brightly. Emo Lanhai smiled and said with emotion, Fong Siyuan's successor is not simple. You will know in the future. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and unfurled a sealed beast skin scroll in the void. Boom! Suddenly, the scroll reflected a figure like a god. He was dressed in a black robe, his purple hair fluttering in the wind, and his whole body was surrounded by the immortal law. It was extremely terrifying. Old eccentric Yin, you should be the one to collect your belongings. Emo Lanhai said. The figure nodded and waved his hand in the void. In the distant sky, a black giant axe whistled over. Yi Chunjun recognized that it was the spirit of order that he had targeted before. At this moment, the black giant axe fell into the hands of the figure like a docile lamb. Thank you, old Emo. As soon as the figure's voice fell, he turned into a light and disappeared into the scroll. Emo Lanhai put away the scroll and muttered, This old strange Yin is too perfunctory. He doesn't even show any sincerity in his thanks. He's not sincere at all. Yi Chunjun couldn't help asking, Uncle, is this the pavilion master of Yuankong Pavilion? One of the 3 pavilions? Emo Lanhai grunted in agreement. Who else but this old lunatic could cultivate himself to the point where only a wisp of his primordial spirit is left? Yi Chunjun could not help but gasp. The Origin Sect's ancestral court had 9 great peaks, and each peak had a peak master and a group of successors. They represented the 9 lineages of the Origin Sect's ancestral court. Above the 9 peaks, there were 3 pavilions. They were the Origin Void Pavilion, the Origin Void Pavilion, and the Origin Clarity Pavilion. These 3 pavilions represented the 3 most ancient sects of the Origin Sect's ancestral court. They could be called the 3 pillars of the Origin Sect's ancestral court. Only undying people have the right to enter one of the 3 pavilions. On the other hand, that old eccentric Yin from before was the master of Sky Pavilion. He was called Yin Ji, and he could be said to be a supreme figure in the Origin Sect's ancestral court that was elusive and mysterious to the extreme. Yi Chunjun had heard that Pavilion Master Yin Ji had reached the transcendent realm of the immortal realm a long time ago. He had unimaginable supernatural abilities. Yi Chunjun had never thought that the spirit of order hidden in the Forbidden Land was actually left here by Pavilion Master Silent's words a long time ago. Thinking of this, he could not help but sigh. This time, even if Brother Lin obtains the spirit of order, I'm afraid he won't be able to keep it. Emo Lanhai said, It doesn't matter if he can't keep it. But if he takes old eccentric Yan's item, if he's targeted by him again, that's not good. Yi Chunjun said, But I can see that he was still very angry when he left. Emo Lanhai said indifferently, In the future, when he understands, he will naturally know that I helped him resolve a crisis. As he spoke, he waved his sleeve. Instantly, Huang Muji, Meng Haochen, Zhuolin, and Qin Ruoling appeared out of thin air. Senior Brother Chunjun, did you win? Qin Ruoling asked quickly the moment she saw Yi Chunjun. Her voice was soft and pleasant to the ear. Huang Muji and the others also revealed curious expressions. I lost. Yi Chunjun appeared very calm. Qin Ruoling and the others were stunned. Their eyes widened in disbelief. Yi Chunjun smiled bitterly. Why are you looking at me like that? A loss is a loss. It's not something to be proud of. Is that guy really that strong? That's impossible. When did the sixth heaven have such a monster? Could he be the heir of the other 3 ancestral halls? Yi Chun-jun was very calm, but Qin Ruoling and the others couldn't. They were all shocked and excited. Yi Chun-jun was one of the top 3 existences in the Ninth Summit. How could he lose to a guy who came out of nowhere in the same realm? This was very difficult for them to accept. Uncle Mo, you saw it long ago, didn't you? Qin Ruoling asked. The others also looked over. When they first met Lin's son, Mo Lanshan had said that this time, Yi Chun-jun had most likely encountered a powerful enemy. Now, it seemed to have come true. Mo Lanshan smiled. If you know his name, perhaps you won't find it strange. What's his name? Qin Ruoling became more and more curious. Lin's son. Lin's son. Qin Ruoling, Huang Muji, and the others were stunned at first. Then, they suddenly remembered all kinds of sensational events that had caused an uproar in the eternal true world in recent years. They also remembered the heir of Feng Xiyuan, who was wanted by many immortal emperor clans. It's him? They all found it hard to believe. According to the rumors, Lin Sun was fierce and mighty. He was cold and ruthless. He killed his way from the great thousand battles realm to the eternal true world, and then from the eternal true world to the sixth heaven. His hands were stained with blood. Who would have thought that such a peerless villain would be the calm and handsome young man they had seen before? Yi Chun-jun also came to a sudden realization. Lin's son, Lin Daoyuan. So it's him. Then he asked, Uncle Mo, I still don't understand. Why did you stop me from fighting with him? Mo Lanhai patted Yi Chun-jun's shoulder and said, You have been suppressing your realm for many years. As long as you have an opportunity, you can steadily enter the immortal realm. At this time, you can't have any problems with your state of mind. Yi Chun-jun's expression was complicated. Uncle Mo, are you worried that I will be defeated by Lin's son and will be traumatized? Mo Lanhai did not deny it. Qin Ruoling and the others were also stunned. They looked at each other. After a long silence, Yi Chun-jun said, I'm not afraid of losing, but it's clear that in your eyes, I will definitely lose that battle. His voice was low. Seeing this, Mo Lanhai knew it was going to be bad. He hurriedly said, I'm just worried. I don't think you will really lose. Yi Chun-jun sighed softly. Uncle Mo, I know you mean well. But in this way, I feel more and more upset. Being defeated and knowing that I will be defeated are 2 different things. Mo Lanhai patted his forehead and said with a wry smile, It's my fault. If I had known that such a result would bring you confusion in your state of mind, I would not have intervened at that time. Yi Chun-jun shook his head and said firmly, Uncle Mo, you don't have to blame yourself. If I have a chance in the future, I will fight with him again. Even if I lose, I will lose happily. Uncle Mo, go and catch that guy and let him fight with Brother Chun-jun again, Qin Ruoling said anxiously. Mo Lanhai was indeed a little tempted. He secretly thought about how to invite Lin Sun back. Yi Chun-jun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Junior sister, don't make trouble. If Lin Sun doesn't come to the ancestral court of Yuan sect 3 years later, I will take the initiative to find him. After this incident, Qin Ruoling, Huang Muji, Meng Haochen, Zhuo Lin, and others firmly remembered Lin's son. Mo Lanhai seemed to think of something and vowed, Don't worry, I can guarantee that Lin's son is very likely to become a member of our sect. You can wait and see. Not long after Lin's son left, the mysterious forbidden zone covering the sky above the Chaos Demon Sea disappeared. Seeing this scene from afar, Lin's son also felt helpless. He didn't expect that the ancestral court of Yuan sect would beat him to it. With a big figure like Mo Lanshan, not to mention Zhu Shui's ancestor, even the immortal existences of the sixth heaven won't be able to do anything. 9 kinds of restriction power, Lin's son was very unwilling to accept it, but he could only do so. After all, they were from the ancestral court of Yuan sect. However, Lin's son wouldn't hold a grudge against them because of this. The struggle for fortuitous encounters had always been like this. Not every fortuitous encounter would be in your pocket. Moreover, Mo Lanshan's explanation made Lin's son believe it a little. If the spirits of order were really left by the big figures of Yuan's sect, then even if he could get his hands on it, it would be a hot potato. What's more, an unfathomable immortal figure like Emo Lanshan didn't show an aggressive attitude from beginning to end, nor did he try to kill Lin Sun. Instead, he gave him a jade pendant, intending to recommend him to the ancestral court of Yuan's sect. With this kind of demeanor and magnanimity, Lin Sun couldn't hate him. On the same day, Lin Sun left the Chaos Demon Sea. Half a month later, Dragon's Pine Mountain. When he returned, Lin Sun noticed that Dragon's Pine Mountain was covered with a layer of strange and terrifying power of order. It was the aura of the Cursed Order. Master Lu refined the Cursed Order a month in advance. Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised, but this also made him feel completely relieved. The Cursed Order is about the 4th level of the heavenly stage, enough to make Luo family move to the 7th heaven and take root. And in this 6th heaven, no one would dare to provoke it again. While thinking, Lin Sun had already rushed towards Dragon's Pine Mountain, naturally unimpeded along the way. On the way back to Jinjia Peak, Grandpa Luo Xiao hurried over and told Lin Sun a piece of news. A few days ago, a distinguished guest came to visit Lin Sun and was now waiting at Jinjia Peak, personally received by Master Lu Boya. As for the identity of this distinguished guest, Luo Xiao smiled mysteriously and said, "When you see him, you will naturally know." Lin Sun became more and more curious. He was sure that since this distinguished guest was personally received by Master Lu, he was destined not to be an enemy. But who was this person? While thinking, Lin Sun had already left in a hurry. When he arrived at the top of Jinjia Peak, he saw 2 people sitting in front of a table, drinking tea and talking on the edge of the cliff. One of them was Master Lu. The other, when he saw the figure of the other party, Lin Sun's eyes suddenly widened, revealing a look of disbelief. P.S. I will update tonight, about 10:30. Please keep the monthly ticket. Chapter 2764. The sea of clouds evaporated, and the ancient pines swayed. In front of the table, the figure was full of spirit and beauty, as if she had walked out of a painting. She was dressed as a man, wearing a pink robe decorated with pink rose cloud patterns. Her long black hair was held up by a hairpin, revealing a fair oval face that was beautiful enough to stun all living things. She had a pair of naturally charming almond-shaped eyes. Her lips were red without lipstick, and her eyebrows were green without makeup. Her skin was as white as sheep fat, and her figure was slender and graceful. At this moment, she was sitting there casually, her eyes moving about, full of open-mindedness and elegance. She had the grace of an immortal and the jade bones of a god. Anyone who saw her would be stunned. Her temperament and appearance were too special. When she saw Lin Sun's figure appear, she stood up with a smile and said, "Little junior brother, long time no see. You are even more elegant than before. Come, let your senior sister take a good look." Her voice was clear and melodious, revealing a trace of unique charm. This woman was Fong Xiuan's successor, Jun Huan, who had the title of Instant Dao Emptiness. Sword Dao is the most elegant. As she spoke, she walked towards Lin Sun, her white and slender hands behind her back, a pair of beautiful phoenix eyes looking up and down at Lin Sun, a faint smile on her red lips. The beauty was like a painting, like an immortal. "Senior sister, why are you?" Lin Sun was very shocked, caught off guard. Previously, he had never thought that the mysterious guest who came to the Luo family to visit him would be senior sister Jun Huan. Surprised? Jun Huan blinked her eyes, her smile like petals after the rain, fresh and refined. Lin Sun nodded and grinned, also very surprised. After the battle with the nameless emperor, he was separated from the senior brothers and sisters of Fong Xiuan Mountain. At that time, he had just stepped into the peak of the quasi-emperor realm in Mount Buzhou. And now, he had long become the Zhu Ying emperor ancestor whose name shook the eternal true world. Time flew, and many years later, he fought in the starry sky, crossed boundless territories, traveled through the vast 1,000 battle realms, and killed all the way to the 6th heaven. He often thought about when he would meet his senior brothers and sisters again. He was also worried about the safety of his senior brothers and sisters, because he had heard that the top 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven regarded Feng Xiuan's successor as their enemy and wanted to eliminate him as soon as possible. The only thing Lin Sun didn't expect was that he would meet senior sister Junhuan at this time in the Luo family. How could he not be excited and happy? Junhuan also noticed the joy on Lin Sun's face. He sighed with emotion in his heart and said, "In recent years, every descendant of our mountain of mind and heart is pleasantly surprised and emotional when they hear the news about you." When he met Lin Sun for the first time, Lin Sun had just left the ancient desolation realm and was trekking in the starry sky world. At that time, he had just entered the holy way of pilgrimage and was in the exceptional great saint realm. And now, that young man from back then was already an absolute Empyrean ancestor who had killed undying beings. The present was different from the past. It was merely SOSO. "Sooner, you guys chat." Not far away, Luke Boy stood up with a smile, turned around, and left. "Senior sister, please take a seat." Lin Sun stepped forward and personally poured tea for Junhuan. Returning to her seat, Junhuan looked at the busy Lin Sun with a smile and said, "Little junior brother, don't be so busy. Sit down." Lin Sun sat down and said with a smile, "Senior sister, how did you find this place? You are famous in the 6th heaven now. Isn't it easy to find you?" Junhuan teased with a smile. Lin Sun was speechless. He asked again, "Senior sister, I really have a lot of doubts in my heart over the years. This time, you have to clear them up for me." Junhuan bit her lip lightly and said with an awkward expression, "Some things can be said, and some things can't be said. For example, if you ask me if I like you, that would be too embarrassing." As she said this, she winked at Lin Sun, her bright and watery eyes full of playfulness and slyness. "Then I would like to ask, senior sister, do you already have a man you like?" Lin Sun said with a smile. He was no longer as insensitive as before. He couldn't help but think of these words: sweet smile, beautiful eyes. Junhuan sighed faintly and stared at Lin Sun with her beautiful eyes, saying, "The men who love me can line up from the 1st heaven to the 9th heaven, but the one in front of me is the one in front of me." She was extremely beautiful and charming. Even if she was disguised as a man, her gestures were still full of charm. At this moment, she stared at Lin Sun with her beautiful eyes full of shyness and timidity. Lin Sun didn't dare to look at her. He coughed and said, "Senior sister, the one in front of you is me. You don't think that I am the man you like, do you?" Junhuan said seriously, "Haven't you heard that the moon in the sea is the moon in the sky, and the person in front of you is your sweetheart?" Lin Sun was stunned. Junhuan laughed and said, "Hey, I'm just kidding. Don't take it seriously." Lin Sun's lips twitched. "I knew it would be like this." Junhuan exclaimed in surprise, "What? Are you thinking of hitting on senior sister?" Before he could finish, Junhuan's beautiful eyes turned into crescent moons, and she said with a smile, "I have to say, you have good taste, unlike senior brother Pujan, who is practically a block of wood. As soon as we meet, he says that I'm neither a man nor a woman, neither human nor demon, and insists that I dress up as a woman. Don't you think that's infuriating? I think he'll never be able to find a Tao companion in his life." Lin Sun was puzzled. "Senior sister, it's okay to dress up as a man, but why do you have to do this?" "Junior brother, do you want to see me dress up as a woman?" Junhuan asked. Lin Sun said, "Of course. Senior sister, you are already so beautiful when you dress up as a man. If you dress up as a woman, you will be even more beautiful." Junhuan poked Lin Sun's forehead with her white and soft hand. "Beauty is like a bubble, and beauty is like a skeleton." The old monk of the ancestral court of Buddhism once said that a person's appearance is not equal to the truth. Lin Sun sneered, "I am not a monk." Junhuan also laughed and said seriously after a while, "I swore a long time ago that I will never dress up as a woman in my life unless I find a man I like." Lin Sun was stunned. "Doesn't it mean that you will dress up as a woman only if you meet a man you like?" Junhuan grunted through his nose. "Then I am looking forward to the day when you find a man you like, Lin Sun said with a smile. The two talked with each other without any sense of strangeness. Instead, they were like siblings, happy and harmonious. During the conversation, Lin Sun finally learned some things. Since the eldest senior brother and third senior sister crossed the starry sky and arrived at the eternal world, they stayed in the sixth heaven for a short time. Then they went to the seventh heaven. More than 10 years ago, the eldest senior brother Dojan Di, the fifth senior brother Chi Jun, the eighth senior brother Bo Swansea, the 11th senior brother Pu Jun, the 12th senior brother Shen Yin, the 13th senior brother Li Xianwei, and others acted together and went to a place called Taiyu Real Realm. According to Jun Huan, there was a great fortune related to transcendence in the Taiyu Real Realm. The eldest senior brother and others went to a place called Taiyu Real Realm. They went there. She, the 15th senior brother Qing Ting, the 16th senior sister Cheng Yu, the 19th senior brother Shuiya, the 20th senior brother Jing Zhongyue, the 22nd senior brother Lan Songjia, and the 25th senior brother Lu Xiangqi were dormant in the seventh heaven. Hearing this, Lin Sun suddenly remembered one thing and said, "Senior sister, it has been so many years, but you have never said what your ranking in the sect is. When you ask other senior brothers and sisters, they always avoid answering. Now it's time for you to say it, right?" Jun Huan's exceedingly beautiful face flickered for a while, and she said angrily, "It's just a ranking. Is it that important?" Lin Sun was not discouraged. "Since it's not important, why don't you tell me?" Jun Huan stared at Lin Sun for a while. Seeing that Lin Sun did not avoid her, she finally gave in. She gnashed her teeth and spat out 3 words from her red lips. 38. 38? Lin Sun's eyes were slightly strange, but when he noticed Jun Huan's murderous eyes, he immediately became serious and said, "Senior sister is right. It's just a ranking. It's not important." But Jun Huan still couldn't help poking Lin Sun's forehead and said coldly, "Don't mention the ranking in front of me in the future, or I'll smash your head." She rolled up her sleeves threateningly and waved her pink fist. Lin Sun did not dare to shout, and his forehead was full of cold sweat. Smash his head? Senior sister Jun Huan was really fierce. It was also at this time that he noticed that senior sister Jun Huan's aura was close to nothingness, and he could not see any clues at all, nor could he identify her cultivation realm. Senior sister has become an immortal? He couldn't help asking. Of course. Jun Huan's words were casual. She raised her teacup and took a sip. The eternal world is indeed far from the starry sky, ancient path. In the 3rd year after I arrived here, I stepped into the celestial longevity realm. Not long ago, I broke into the nirvana god realm. This kind of advancement speed is not bad. Puff. Lin Sun spat out a mouthful of tea. This was not bad. Jun Huan smiled and said, "Young man, you're making a fuss about nothing. Aren't you looking down on your senior brothers and sisters? In the ancient times of the starry sky ancient path, we already stood on the road to the emperor realm. But since then, our cultivation realm has been suppressed, trapped in a cage for a long time, unable to break free. Let me say something shameless. Among the descendants of Feng Siyuan, which one of us doesn't have the foundation and talent to dominate the world? Even someone as stupid as senior brother Pu Jun is only stupid in his state of mind and cultivation." A hint of disdain and arrogance appeared between Jun Huan's brows. Think about it. After being suppressed for so long, when the day comes when your potential explodes, how can others compare to it? Take eldest senior brother, for example. On the first day he arrived in the eternal world, he seemed to have broken through the layers of shackles on his body and stepped into the immortal realm in one go. In just 3 days, he broke through to the nirvana god realm. That is truly heaven-defying. When he heard this, Lin Sun couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Even if he racked his brains, he would never have thought that his senior brothers and sisters would be so fierce. Perhaps it was just as senior sister Jun Huan had said. In the past, when they were on the starry sky ancient path, they, the descendants of Feng Siyuan, had been wearing layers of shackles. But after they arrived in the eternal world, these shackles no longer existed. It allowed their potential, cultivation, and power, which had been suppressed for countless years, to explode and sublimate like never before. The harder they were suppressed, the fiercer they would explode. P.S. Update sent. Miss Junhuan is here. Monthly votes. Also, when I wake up tomorrow, I'll see how many people are complaining about the descendants of Fong Cun breaking through too quickly. Chapter 2765. Lin Sun was indeed shocked, but after calming down and thinking about it, he felt that it was normal. For example, he had only cultivated for a little more than 100 years. After leaving the starry sky ancient road and entering the vast thousand battles domain, his cultivation had been advancing rapidly. Now, he was only a step away from the path of immortality. And in the entire Fong Cun Mountain, which one of the senior brothers and sisters was ordinary. For example, the fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi, who had the highest talent, the strongest root bone, and the most monstrous foundation, was suppressed in a place like the returning ruins, yet he could seize the opportunity to become immortal. How abnormal was that? The other senior brothers such as Ruosu, Li Xianwei, Xue, and others might not be comparable to the fourth senior brother, but each of them had a terrifying foundation that could suppress a realm by themselves. And the eldest senior brother was an existence that even the fourth senior brother admired from the bottom of his heart. What's more, most of them had already become emperors in the ancient times, after being suppressed by the starry sky ancient road for countless years. How could their potential be ordinary? In short, the senior brothers and sisters of Fong Cun Mountain couldn't be measured by common sense. But another doubt emerged in Lin Sun's mind. He couldn't help but ask, since most of the senior brothers and sisters have already entered the immortal realm, why did they choose to remain dormant? Are the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven so powerful? Junhuan's expression became serious. Junior brother, don't underestimate these immortal giants. Each of them has an inseparable connection with the 9th heaven. In other words, behind them stands the eternal God race. Lin Sun nodded. I have heard of this. You haven't truly understood the details of the 8th heaven. What you see is only the surface, and what you hear are only rumors. Junhuan said, a long time ago, Master used the 8th heaven to go to the 9th heaven, but he was obstructed by the 10 immortal giants. Even with Master's cultivation, it took him many years to intimidate them one by one and force them to bow their heads. At this point, Junhuan sighed softly, but he could only make them bow their heads. According to Master, it isn't impossible to defeat them one by one in one fell swoop, but he would have to pay a huge price, a price that even Master himself can't bear. Lin Sun couldn't help but be shocked. In his heart, his master, the master of the heart core, was like a god. But all those years ago, he was only able to force the 10 undying giants to bow their heads. One could imagine how terrifying the resources of these giant forces were. For the past few years, we've chosen to lay low. Other than making use of our time to strengthen ourselves, we've also been planning something. Junhuan said, third senior sister will be in charge of this matter. It's a critical moment now. Lin Sun couldn't help but think of Ruosu's gentle and elegant figure. He couldn't help asking curiously, what's the matter? Junhuan pursed his lips, a faint smile appearing on his face. We plan to fight against the 10 immortal lords to determine a winner. Her voice was soft and magnetic, but the meaning in her words shocked Lin Sun. Fighting against 10 undying giants. Eldest senior brother and the others have already headed to the grand universe true realm to seize fortune. According to senior brother Bo Swansea's deduction, if nothing unexpected happens, then it would be sufficient for eldest senior brother, 5th senior brother, and 11th senior brother to attain true transcendence on the eternal Tao within 100 years, the final realm of the 3 great eternal realms. Junhuan said, this is our key trump card against the 10 immortal lords. Third senior sister and the other senior brothers and sisters will enter the spirit sect's ancestral court. Lin Sun was stunned. The spirit sect? Junhuan saw Lin Sun's confusion and said, it's complicated to explain. In short, the Yuan sect and the spirit sect's ancestral court are considered neutral forces. But in these 2 ancestral courts, there are forces belonging to the 10 immortal lords. What third senior sister and the others need to do is to eliminate the forces of the 10 immortal lords step by step after the spirit sect gains a firm foothold. Lin Sun vaguely understood now. He couldn't help but ask, but if they do that, will the spirit sect's ancestral court agree? Jun Huan laughed. The forces standing behind the 4 ancestral halls are even more transcendent than the forces standing behind the 10 immortal lords. This is related to the power balance between the 9th heaven and the eternal god race. You only need to know that the reason the 10 immortal lords are so polite to the 4 ancestral halls is because the forces standing behind them are inferior to the forces behind the 4 ancestral halls. Lin Sun was shocked, but he couldn't understand. If that's the case, why are the 4 ancestral halls in the 7th heaven, while the 8th heaven is occupied by the 10 immortal lords? Because the 4 ancestral halls exist to select the most outstanding talents for the eternal god race behind them. This is their only purpose. They don't care about the struggles between forces, nor do they have any interest in expanding their territory. The only thing they want to do is to accept disciples and teach them. They want to select the world's top talents for the eternal god race behind them. Jun Huan explained patiently, they don't care about your origin. Whether you're a member of the 10 immortal lords or a commoner with no background, as long as you're selected by the 4 ancestral halls, you'll have the opportunity to go to the 9th heaven and be used by the forces behind the 4 ancestral halls. If the 4 ancestral halls are in the 8th heaven and the 10 immortal lords are in the 7th heaven, even if a dazzling genius appears in this world, I'm afraid that the 10 immortal lords will immediately take him away. After all, the 7th heaven and the 8th heaven are separated by a large domain. But in the 7th heaven, they can recruit all the outstanding talent from the 1st to the 6th heaven. Of course, in the eyes of the 4 ancestral halls, the word outstanding is used to describe those who can become ancestors. You are also the ancestor of the Jew, Ing Emperor, so you should be very clear about how amazing the foundation and talent of those who can enter this realm are. Hearing this, Lin Sun vaguely understood. If that's the case, even if third senior sister's identity is exposed after entering the ancestral hall of the spirit sect, nothing will happen to them. He thought. Jun Huan nodded with a smile. Yes, but this is only one of the reasons. In the future, you will understand why third senior sister and the others went to the ancestral hall of the origin sect. There's a mystery behind it. Mystery behind it? Lin Sun was startled. Looking at Jun Huan's smiling face, he suddenly understood. He smiled bitterly. It seems that third senior sister won't tell me this mystery now. Jun Huan said matter-of-factly, the reason why a mystery is that it should be kept secret. Don't think too much, I don't know either. Or, among us, except for third senior sister, no one knows what this mystery is. Lin Sun was surprised. He thought for a moment and said, since third senior sister arranged this, there must be a reason. Jun Huan smiled and said, you are so considerate of third senior sister. Do you have feelings for third senior sister? Don't be embarrassed. Tell me about it. Who knows, I might even be able to help you. Among the successors of Fengtsun Mountain, third senior sister can be said to be the most intelligent. Just like her Tao, it can be described as flawless and perfect. Lin Sun was speechless and said, how can I have any feelings for third senior sister? Jun Huan let out a long sigh. As expected, none of the men of our Fengtsun Mountain dare to have any ideas about third senior sister. In the past, I even encouraged the other senior brothers to pursue third senior sister, but all of them had the same expression as you. In your hearts, is third senior sister really that scary? Lin Sun said grumpily, not scary, but respectable. Jun Huan blinked her beautiful eyes. In the end, she has neither the heart nor the guts. If I were a man, I would definitely take third senior sister down. Unfortunately, senior sister, you are not a man, Lin Sun said seriously. Jun Huan suddenly reached out and poked Lin Sun's forehead. Seeing Lin Sun's stunned and helpless expression, she couldn't help but laugh. Hey, I'm doing this for your own good. By the way, since you are not willing to pursue third senior sister, what do you think of senior sister Qingyu? Lin Sun was speechless. He suddenly felt that Jun Huan in front of him was really worthy of being the 38th descendant of Fongsun Mountain. Jun Huan raised her eyebrows and said, "You are not pursuing third senior sister and have no interest in senior sister Qingyu. You are not thinking of hitting on me, are you?" As she spoke, her beautiful eyes glowed and she bit her red lips. Her unbelievably beautiful face was suffused with an amazing charm. Lin Sun couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Senior sister, let's talk business." Jun Huan withdrew her coquettish aura and rolled her eyes at Lin Sun. She said, It seems that you will never have a group of wives and concubines in this life." Lin Sun's lips twitched and said, "I am willing." Stubborn. Jun Huan glared at him, then suddenly laughed and said, "All right, I won't tease you anymore. Let's get down to business. This time, I came here on behalf of third senior sister. She hopes that you can do something for her." Lin Sun suddenly became spirited and said, "Don't say one thing. As long as I can help, I will agree to anything." Tut! Third senior sister's words are really useful. Why do I feel that you are more and more interested in third senior sister? Jun Huan looked suspicious. Lin Sun's face was almost black. Who dared to tease him like this for so many years? But there was no other way. Who asked Jun Huan to be his senior sister? Who asked her to be more powerful than him? Who asked her to be ranked 38th? Who asked? Lin Sun could only pinch his nose and bear it. He said helplessly, "Senior sister, let's talk business." Jun Huan stopped teasing and said, "Third senior sister intends to let you go to the ancestral court of Yuan sect." Lin Sun was surprised. The ancestral court of Yuan sect? Before leaving Chaos Demon Sea, he had just met Mo Lanshan and other people of the ancestral court of Yuan sect and got a jade pendant from Mo Lanshan. But now, third senior sister actually wanted him to go to the ancestral court of Yuan sect, which felt a little strange. Yes, Jun Huan said. 3 years later, the ancestral court of Yuan sect will recruit successors. With your cultivation, it is not a big problem for you to enter it. Lin Sun couldn't help asking, "Why do I enter the ancestral court of Yuan sect?" Jun Huan took out a jade slip and handed it to Lin Sun. "Third senior sister gave this to you. You will know after you have a look. P.S. It's a little late, so I'm stuck." Chapter 2766. Lin Sun opened the jade slip. After reading it, he finally understood why his third senior sister arranged for him to go to the ancestral court of the Yuan sect, become the master of the Yuan Qing Pavilion. All of a sudden, Lin Sun could not help but feel heavy pressure. According to the jade slip, the Origin Sect's ancestral court was divided into 3 pavilions and 9 peaks. The 9 peaks represented the 9 lineages of the Yuan sect's ancestral court, and each lineage had disciples. The status of the 3 pavilions was higher than that of the 9 peaks, and they were the 3 cornerstones of the Yuan sect's ancestral court. Among them, the Origin Void Pavilion was in charge of criminal law, the Origin Void Pavilion was in charge of passing on martial arts, and the Origin Clarity Pavilion was in charge of assessment and selection. Each of the 3 pavilion masters held great power in the Yuan sect and could be said to have monstrous authority. Above the 3 pavilions was the leader of the Yuan sect. The master of the Yuan sect represents the eternal will of the 9th heaven, and his status in the ancestral court of the Yuan sect is naturally supreme. According to the third senior sister, the previous Yuan Qing pavilion master was called Yu Beihai. He was a horrifying old monster in the transcendent realm Great Perfection. However, tens of thousands of years ago, Yu Beihai had been in seclusion. It was said that he was trying to find a way to break through the undying realm and prove his Tao to be eternal. However, several years ago, Yu Beihai suddenly came out of seclusion and stated that he would prove his Tao to be eternal in 100 years. Regardless of whether he succeeded or failed, he would step down from his position as Pavilion Master Yuan Qing. As soon as the news came out, the Origin Sect's ancestral court was in an uproar. Many people had their eyes on the position of Yuan Qing Pavilion Master. One had to know that the Origin Purity Pavilion was responsible for the selection of disciples. The appointment of the 9 Peaks Peak Lords and Elders, as well as the selection of successors and disciples, all had to go through the examination of the Origin Purity Pavilion before the selection would be carried out according to the results of the examination. Simply put, what the Origin Clarity Pavilion grasped was the power to appoint personnel in the 9 Great Peaks. Therefore, it was not hard to imagine how much power one would have if they could become the leader of the Origin Clear Pavilion. What the third senior sister asked Lin to do was to enter the ancestral court of Yuan sect and strive to become the head of Yuan Qing Pavilion after Yu Beihai achieved eternity. This pressure was naturally not ordinary. The Jade Slip recorded in detail that when he first entered the Origin religion's ancestral court, he was only a successor of one of the 9 peaks. Furthermore, the successors were divided into core disciples and core disciples. Only by becoming a core disciple would one have the chance to compete for the opportunity to enter the Origin Clarity Pavilion. And after entering the Yuanqing Pavilion to take up a position, they still needed to go through the ranks of deputy deacon, deacon, elder, and so on before they had the chance to become a deputy pavilion master. In the Origin Void Pavilion, the Origin Void Pavilion, and the Origin Clarity Pavilion, there were 3 vice pavilion masters each. In other words, there were 9 deputy pavilion masters in the 3 pavilions. This also meant, if Yu Beihai stepped down from the position of pavilion master, then the position of pavilion master Yuanqing would be chosen from these 9 deputy pavilion masters. Thinking about it, from the moment one entered the Origin religion ancestral court, one had to become a core disciple of one of the 9 peaks, then enter the Yuanqing Pavilion to take up a position, go through the ranks of deputy deacon, deacon, elder, and so on before one could become a deputy pavilion master. Only then did he have the qualifications to compete for the position of pavilion master. This kind of pressure wasn't just an ordinary kind of pressure. Little junior brother, how is it? Jun Huan asked with a chuckle. It's fine if you feel too much pressure. This is just a part of our Fangsun Mountains plan. If you can take over the position of Yuanqing Pavilion Master, it'll naturally be even better. If you don't have the chance, it's fine too. I'll do my best. Lin Sun thought for a while, his eyes calm. He dared not say that he was absolutely confident, but he would do his best to fight for it. Jun Huan's voice became gentle. Regardless of success or failure, don't risk your life. In fact, I can vaguely guess that this arrangement should not be third senior sister's doing. Then who is it? Lin Sun was surprised. Master, Jun Huan said softly. Lin Sun was stunned. If it was Master's intention, then this matter was far from as simple as he thought. Jun Huan smiled. Actually, fourth senior brother originally wanted to go to the Origin religion ancestral court, but third senior sister didn't agree. He had no choice but to follow third senior sister and the others to the spirit religion ancestral court. Fourth senior brother is still alive, Lin Sun exclaimed in surprise. All these years, he had always felt extremely guilty, because all kinds of rumors said that fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi had already been killed by the immortal Wang family outside the God's secret realm. Because of this, he hated the Wang family to the core. He had long decided that one day, he would definitely avenge fourth senior brother and make the Wang family pay an unbearable price. But he never expected that, according to senior sister Jun Huan, fourth senior brother was actually still alive. It's not easy for a scourge like him to die. Jun Huan sneered. Back then, outside the god's ruins, it was Master's willpower that saved his life and brought him to the 7th heaven. If not for that, I would have thought that this scourge was already dead. Lin Sun could hear the rejection and sarcasm in Jun Huan's tone. Obviously, she still held a grudge against fourth senior brother for what he did in Fangsun Mountain. Fourth senior brother has changed. Even if he is a scourge, at least he won't harm our Fangsun Mountain. I can guarantee this, Lin Sun said seriously. Fourth senior brother had saved his life more than once. Perhaps there was something wrong with his personality, but now he had really changed. Jun Huan glanced at him and said, if he hadn't changed, do you think we would be willing to keep him by our side? However, I won't forgive him so easily. This guy claimed to be the best in the world. Back then, in Fangsun Mountain, he said that I have a good appearance, but my personality is like a shrew in the market. At the end of her words, she gritted her teeth. Listen, he actually compared me with a shrew. He also said that although my personality seems to be open-minded, it's actually as cold as a knife. He said that no man would dare to marry me in this life, and that I deserve to be alone for the rest of my life. At that time, I wanted to stab him to death with a knife. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in her beautiful eyes. Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Seeing Jun Huan's unkind expression, he quickly said, "It's all in the past. Why do you have to be so pretentious with a scourge like him?" Jun Huan was just holding a grudge. It was impossible for him to hate Ling Xuanzi because of what happened in his youth. Naturally, he wouldn't really care about it. Until dusk approached, Lu Boya came and invited Jun Huan to the main hall of the Luo family for dinner. Luo Xiao had already arranged a sumptuous banquet. Jun Huan smiled and agreed. That night, Luo Xiao, Luo Qingheng, and a group of big shots accompanied them. Until late at night, Lin Sun and Lu Boya had a long talk, telling him about their encounter with the people of the Origin Religion's ancestral court in the mysterious Forbidden Land. Lu Boya couldn't help but feel a little regretful. No wonder the spirit of order in the Forbidden Land was so difficult to tame. It turns out that it was left behind by a big shot of the Origin Religion's ancestral court. Then, Lin Sun told Lu Boya that he planned to leave tomorrow and go to the seventh heaven. Lu Boya wasn't surprised, or rather, when Jun Huan appeared in the Luo family, he had already vaguely guessed some clues. Since you have made your decision, then go. The Luo family is now protected by the Cursed Order. In the entire sixth heaven, no one can threaten the Luo family anymore. Lu Boya said warmly. On the contrary, you must be careful after going to the seventh heaven. If you really encounter danger that you can't resolve, return to the Luo family. This will always be your home. Lin Sun nodded and said, "Mr. Lu, I'm most worried about you, but don't worry. I will definitely help you find a way to resolve the 5-decay tribulation in the future." Lu Boya showed a gratified look and didn't say anything more. When Lin Sun returned to the Jianjiak Peak, Jun Huan, who was sitting under the starlight and drinking tea, said, "Speaking of which, the Luo family and the Fengsuan Mountain have the same enemy. It's a pity that the whereabouts of the Lord of Tongtian are unknown, causing the Luo family to fall to this point." Lin Sun said, "Senior sister, have you also heard of my great-grandfather? Well, Master once said a long time ago that your great-grandfather was extremely talented and unique on the Great Path. He can be called a true hero." Jun Huan sighed softly. "It's just that even Master didn't expect that your great-grandfather, like him, was besieged by the 10 immortal giants." Lin Sun was silent for a moment, then said, "Senior sister, don't you think that the 10 immortal giants are like watchdogs? They sit in the 8th heaven and prevent anyone from going to the 9th heaven. They are loyal and unswerving." Jun Huan was taken aback for a moment, then immediately burst into laughter and nodded. "It's not like they are." Lin Sun also laughed. In the quiet night, the clouds were misty, the stars were twinkling, and the pine trees and bamboos were swaying in the wind. Jun Huan stood up, her pink robe fluttering in the wind, accentuating her slender figure. Her delicate and beautiful face was suffused with a soft and bright luster under the starlight. She gazed at the sea of clouds in the distance and said, "Junior brother, the 7th heaven is completely different from the 6th heaven. When you arrive there, there will be countless dangers and challenges. You have to be mentally prepared." "Yes." Lin Sun stood beside Jun Huan with his hands behind his back. From this angle, he was only half a head taller than Jun Huan, who was already extremely tall. The two stood side by side on the peak of the mountain. In the distance, there was a sea of clouds and a little light. The next morning, Lu Boya, Luo Xiao, and Luo Qingheng arrived at the Jinjiao Peak before dawn. They all knew that Lin Sun would leave with Jun Huan today. "Sun, this is a gift from me and your uncle. You must accept it." Luo Xiao took out a jade box and handed it to Lin Sun. In the jade box, there were more than 10 pieces of immortal matter. Some were the size of pebbles, some were the size of fists, and they were all very precious. Lin Sun was touched. Just as he was about to say something, Luo Qingheng smiled and said, "If you don't accept it, then I will help you leave today. Lin Sun took a deep breath, put away the jade box, and bowed. Grandpa, Uncle, take care of yourselves. Luo Xiao helped Lin Sun up and said, Child, you must be careful. Don't repeat the mistakes of your maternal great-grandfather. Her words were full of ardent concern. Lin Sun nodded seriously. Lu Boya also handed a jade box to Lin Sun and said, This is a secret treasure of order. It can borrow the power of the Order of Curse. Lin Sun didn't refuse. After putting it away, he said, Master Lu, take care too. Not far away. Jun Huan saw all this with a smile and said, Don't worry, everyone. Little junior brother is the successor of our Fengsuan Mountain. Whoever bullies him is bullying our Fengsuan Mountain. We will not spare him. Lu Boya, Luo Xiao, and Luo Qingheng all laughed. Then, under their gazes, Jun Huan took Lin Sun and soared into the sky. They flew higher and higher, and finally disappeared above the sky. At that time, the sky was clear and the clouds were rosy. It was a beautiful scene. Chapter 2767. The Seventh Heaven. It is divided into the central main realm and the 4 major star fields. Since ancient times, in the central main realm, there have been 36 blessed lands. Each blessed land can be said to have gathered the essence of heaven and earth, nurtured the original source, and is known as the 36 Tao Meridians since ancient times. Over countless years, the 36 blessed lands continued to exist in the world. The undying powers that occupied the 36 blessed lands had changed countless times. The reason is that all forces in charge of the heavenly order are eager to take root in one of the 36 blessed lands. In the competition for the blessed land, battles are bound to break out. The losers will leave the battlefield in dejection. The winner will become the new owner of a blessed land. It can be said that in the central main realm, the immortal emperor clans that can occupy the 36 blessed lands represent the 36 top giants. The 4 major star fields are distributed above the central main realm. They are Sky Profound, Sky Heroic, Z-Way, and Green Light. In the 4 major star fields, there are 12 heavenly caves. There were 3 grotto heaven worlds in each star zone. In the 7th heaven, the 12 heavenly caves are regarded as the immortal ancestral root, the origin of all paths. It can be called the top cultivation pure land in the 7th heaven. From ancient times to the present, the 12 heavenly caves have been occupied by the most ancient immortal forces. Each of these immortal forces has mastered the power of the 9th level of the heavenly order, and far more than one. For example, the Nan family, Gu family, Li family, and Yun family of the 4 Eastern Imperial clans are entrenched in the 4 heavenly caves of the Green Light star field. Each of the 4 major clans has mastered the number of the 9th level of the heavenly order, ranging from 3 to 5 to 7 or 8. Their foundation is astonishing. Unlike the 36 blessed lands of the central main realm, the immortal forces entrenched in the 12 heavenly caves of the 4 major star fields have rarely changed over the countless years. The more ancient the foundation, the more terrifying the force. If the immortal forces that occupy the 36 blessed lands can only be called the top in the central main realm, then the immortal forces that occupy the 12 heavenly caves can be called the overlord of the entire 7th heaven. In short, the 36 blessed lands of the central main realm, plus the 12 heavenly caves of the 4 major star fields, are the most powerful immortal emperor clans in the 7th heaven. The 7th heaven is extremely vast, completely different from the 6th heaven. Almost all of the undying forces in this world controlled heavenly order force. Other than the 12 paradise and the 36 blessed lands, there were also many undying emperor clans of various sizes in other places. It's easy to imagine how vast the 7th heaven is to be able to accommodate so many undying forces in one part of the world. The cultivators of the 7th heaven have a consensus. Here, even undying beings had to keep a low profile. Yuxia City, in a huge city in the central main region, tens of thousands of miles away from glowing Rain City, was the blessed land of green bamboo, one of the 36 blessed lands. The owner of the green bamboo blessed land was the immortal Emperor clan's Zhuang clan. A month after leaving the sixth heaven, led by Jun Huan, Lin Sun came to Yuxia City and settled down there. The drizzle fell on the eaves and gathered into droplets of water that fell to the ground like sparkling pearls. Lin Sun sat under the eaves. Looking at the misty world, he felt at ease. About the situation of the seventh heaven, he has learned about the 12 heavens and 36 blessed lands. He also knows that this is a vast and majestic world. In this world, there are countless legends, as well as unknown joys and sorrows that happen all the time. All of this doesn't matter to Lin Sun. At best, he is just a passerby. Until dusk, the clouds in the sky were like fire, magnificent and colorful. The rain was still falling, but the misty raindrops bathed in the clouds were very beautiful. This is the origin of the name Yuxia City. This city only rains twice a year, once in the second half of the year. Suddenly, Lin Sun's eyes brightened. The closed door in the distance was pushed open, and Jun Huan, who was extremely tall and slender, appeared. She was dressed in a pink robe decorated with rose cloud patterns, holding an oil paper umbrella in her white and smooth hands. She was as beautiful as a fairy coming out of a misty rain painting. Her black hair was coiled into a bun, revealing a perfect and delicate face. When her beautiful eyes moved, there was a myriad of amorous feelings. So what if she is a woman dressed as a man? She is still beautiful enough to amaze all living beings. But at this moment, she seemed to be a little annoyed. As soon as she entered the door, she threw the umbrella away. Her rosy lips were curled into a sharp arc, and a pair of clear eyes revealed a touch of sullen anger. Lin Sun quickly got up to greet her. "Senior sister, which bastard offended you?" Jun Huan walked to the eaves and directly occupied the rocking chair where Lin Sun sat before. Lying there lazily, she took a long breath and said, "I didn't expect that the old bastard of the Zhuang clan would go back on his words." Lin Sun was stunned. "Senior sister, what's going on?" After entering the seventh heaven, Jun Huan took him straight to this Yuxia city. It didn't take long for Jun Huan to leave alone and go to the green bamboo blessed land not far from Yuxia city, where the Zhuang clan of the immortal Emperor clan was located. But even Lin Sun didn't know what Jun Huan was going to do. But now it seemed that Jun Huan was obviously bullied in the Zhuang clan. Jun Huan thought for a moment and said, "An ancestor of the Zhuang clan named Zhuang Shilu was selected by the ancestral court of Yuan Church when he was young and went to the ancestral court of Yuan Church to cultivate. Now, Zhuang Shilu has become a deacon of Yuan Clear Pavilion, one of the 3 pavilions of Yuan Church. This matter was told to me by third senior sister. She asked me to take you to the ancestral court of Yuan Church and pay a visit to the Zhuang clan. Through the Zhuang clan, you can get in touch with Zhuang Shilu. If you can get Zhuang Shilu's help, it will be helpful for you to enter Yuan Clear Pavilion in the future." Speaking of this, a touch of coldness appeared between Jun Huan's eyebrows. Who would have thought that the Zhuang clan is an ungrateful thing that goes back on its words? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. "Senior sister, what do you mean?" Jun Huan said, "Junior brother, you may not know this, but the ancestor of the Zhuang clan, like us, came from the starry sky, ancient road. He was one of the first powerhouses to arrive in the eternal world. In the past, when Master went to the ninth heaven, he helped the ancestor of the Zhuang clan in the seventh heaven. If it weren't for Master, the Zhuang clan wouldn't have been qualified to occupy this green bamboo blessed land at that time." According to Jun Huan, the ancestor of the Zhuang clan was also a powerful figure. After many years of journey, he finally obtained the power of the heavenly order, allowing him to gain a foothold in the seventh heaven in one fell swoop. However, the ancestor of the Zhuang clan wasn't willing to stop here. After many years of planning, he set his eyes on green bamboo blessed land and launched a 10-year battle. In the end, the forces under the ancestor of the Zhuang clan suffered serious losses, and he was hunted down everywhere with no place to hide. Later, when a master of the core dimension went to the ninth heaven, he passed by the seventh heaven and saw the ancestor of the Zhuang clan, who was in a precarious situation. Later, when the master of the heart core was on his way to the ninth heaven, he passed by the seventh heaven and saw the ancestor of the Zhuang family, who was in a precarious situation. In the end, with the help of the master of the heart core, the Zhuang clan's ancestor obtained the blessed land of green bamboo. This was also why Jun Huan said that without the help of his honored master, the Zhuang family would not be qualified to occupy the blessed land of green bamboo. In order to thank the master of Feng Siyuan for his help, the founder of the Zhuang clan swore that if the successor of the Feng Siyuan clan had any requests in the future, the Zhuang clan would do everything to repay him. This oath had been passed down through the generations of the Zhuang clan. But who would have thought that after countless years, when Jun Huan visited the Zhuang family as the successor of Feng Siyuan and asked Zhuang Shirlu to give Lin Sun some help, he was refused. It would have been fine if it was just a rejection. After all, things had changed with the passage of time. The kindness of the older generation might not necessarily be useful now. However, Jun Huan didn't expect that when the other party rejected him, there would be undisguised mockery in his words. His attitude was condescending and full of contempt. That was why Jun Huan was so angry. After understanding this, Lin Sun's eyes also flashed a touch of coldness. The Zhuang clan is really too much. Not only are they ungrateful, but they also dare to ridicule us. What do they think of our mountain of heart and mind? Jun Huan's voice was low, and there was a trace of uncontrollable anger on her pretty face. They said that we are a group of wandering ghosts that can be destroyed at any time. The 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven will never spare us. They want us to leave as soon as possible. They can't wait to draw a line with us immediately. In the end, she sighed softly. It's my fault for not being considerate. I thought that the Zhuang clan would remember the kindness of our honored master. But now it seems that they have long regarded our mountain of heart and mind as a disaster and are afraid to avoid us. Lin Sun's eyes suddenly became cold. Senior sister, we can't let this matter go. It doesn't matter if they are ungrateful. Since the blessed land of green bamboo was taken by our honored master, we, as his disciples, have the obligation to take back the blessed land of heart and mind. Jun Huan was startled and couldn't help but laugh. Junior brother and I have the same thoughts. You are right. To deal with those ungrateful and ungrateful people, we must let them pay the price. Lin Sun immediately said, Senior sister, when do we act? Jun Huan had the cultivation of the Nirvana realm, and the Nirvana order he mastered could fight against the order of the Zhuang clan. At that time, even if he couldn't overturn the Zhuang clan, he would be able to deal a heavy blow to them. Looking at Lin Sun, who was sharpening his sword, Jun Huan couldn't help but be stunned, and her beautiful eyes rippled. Senior sister, why are you looking at me? Lin Sun asked. Jun Huan got up from the rocking chair, slightly raised her head, and stared at Lin Sun with a bright smile that could turn all living things upside down. You are the one who loves me the most. As she said, she stretched out her white and tender hand and gently pinched Lin Sun's cheek. Her overly beautiful face was full of affection, but this time, I have decided to bear with it. It was the first time for Lin Sun to be pinched so intimately by a woman. He blushed a little, but when he heard Jun Huan's decision, he immediately frowned. Why bear with it? Senior sister, are you worried that you can't beat them? P.S. Khan is about to explode. The second round will be a little late. Chapter 2768. There was a bug in the previous chapter, and it has been modified. The Nan clan, Gu clan, and Li clan of the 4 Dongwon clans are based in the Azure Light Galaxy, while the Yin clan is based in the Ziwei Galaxy. The above will not affect the plot. Jun Huan said gently, The most important thing now is for you to enter the Origin Sect's ancestral court smoothly. Everything else is secondary. Lin Sun said, Senior sister, teaching the Zhuang family a lesson won't affect me entering the ancestral court of Yuan Church. Jun Huan said, But once our identity is exposed at this time, I'm afraid that many people in the 7th heaven will come to deal with us. Of course, I know you're not afraid of these storms, but there will be many accidents in the end. It's not worth it. After a pause, she continued, Moreover, if Zhuang Shirlu finds out that you're going to deal with the Zhuang clan at this time, he'll probably make things difficult for you when you enter the Origin Sect's ancestral court. After all, he's a deacon of the Origin Purity Pavilion and a local tyrant. If he wants to deal with you, he'll definitely cause a lot of trouble. Lin Sun suddenly stretched out his hand and placed it on Jun Huan's shoulder. He said seriously, "Senior sister, I've killed my way from the vast thousand battles domain until now. Why should I be afraid of trouble and disturbances? I know you're doing this for my own good, but the Zhuang clan is bullying you. I can't tolerate it." His voice was calm and unquestionable. As he gazed at Chun Shi's handsome face that was right before his eyes and sensed the firmness in his voice, Jun Huan couldn't help but be dazed for a moment. After a while, she slapped away Lin Sun's hand on her shoulder and said with a smile, "You are so kind to me. Are you going to pursue me?" Black lines appeared on Lin's forehead, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I'm talking business. How did senior sister get the wrong idea? All right, listen to my arrangement for this matter." Jun Huan's smile faded. "We, the disciples of Mount Fongsuan, have been living in seclusion for so many years. What hasn't we suffered? But whether it's me, third senior sister and the others, or even eldest senior brother and the others, we all know, one day when we overturn the 10 great undying giants, who in this world will dare to look down on us?" Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, "Okay, I will come back later to take back the blessed land." Jun Huan grinned. "Good boy." Lin Sun. Was he a child in senior sister's eyes? At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from outside the courtyard. Following that, an old voice sounded. I ask if fellow Taoist Jun Huan is here? This old man, Zhuang Xiuwu, has come to pay a visit. Jun Huan and Lin Sun looked at each other and frowned. Why did the Zhuang clan send someone over at this time? Don't act rashly. Ask him why he's here. Jun Huan sent a telepathic message to Yi Futian before opening the door. Outside the courtyard stood a white-bearded old man in a luxurious robe. When he saw Jun Huan opening the door, he immediately revealed an ashamed expression and said, "Previously in green bamboo blessed land, those bastards from the clan were too rude. Please forgive them, fellow Taoist." Jun Huan said calmly, "If you're here to apologize, you don't have to." The elder who called himself Zhuang Xiu hurriedly said, "Dao friend, I already know the ins and outs of the matter. I have specially come to invite Dao friend to green bamboo blessed land as a guest. Firstly, I want to apologize, and secondly, I want to make up for my mistakes." Jun Huan raised an eyebrow. "How can I make up for my mistakes?" Zhuang Xiu cupped his hands together and said, "Fellow Taoist came to visit us in order to obtain the help of our ancestor, Zhuang Shirlu. I can agree to this matter. Also, if fellow Taoist needs any other help, feel free to ask. As long as it is within my ability, we will not refuse." Not far away, Lin Sun came. He said coldly, "Your attitude changed too quickly. Why is that?" Zhuang Xiu glanced at Lin Sun and said with a smile, "You must be the successor of Fong Siyuan, fellow Taoism Lin Sun. My clan was in the wrong before. Unfortunately, it was already too late when I learned of this matter, so I specially came to apologize in person." He was an undying being, but when facing Lin Sun, he didn't put on any airs. Jun Huan hesitated for a moment. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Senior apprentice sister, since this senior has come with such sincerity, we can't reject him. Let's go to green bamboo blessed land and have a look." Zhuang Xiuwu immediately smiled and said enthusiastically, "Fellow Taoist, please come in." As he spoke, he led the way. Jun Huan just wanted to say something, but Lin Sun took his arm and followed him. "Senior apprentice sister, no matter what tricks he is playing, if he really apologizes sincerely, then it's okay. If he doesn't, then don't blame us for being rude." Lin Sun transmitted his voice to Jun Huan. How could Jun Huan not guess Lin Sun's intention? He couldn't help but transmit his voice to Lin Sun. "Little junior apprentice brother, I can see that you are eager to see what tricks the Zhuang clan will play, right?" Lin Sun smiled and said nothing. Seeing this, Jun Huan didn't say anything more. Green bamboo blessed land. It was a boundless world of mountains and rivers. Green bamboo forests covered the mountains and plains, lush and luxuriant, beautiful and distant. Here, auspicious light filled the air, tens of thousands of divine lights, and ancient and primitive chaotic chi enshrouded the place. Every grass and every tree was crystal clear, like a legendary miracle. It was said that the green bamboo in Green Bamboo Blessed Land contained chaotic thunderflame, also known as thunderflame green bamboo. It was a first-class magical material in the world. This bamboo only grew one section in 1,000 years, and it took 10,000 years for it to mature. 100,000 years old thunderflame green bamboo could even produce immortal substances, which could be used as immortal materials. It was extremely rare and precious. After Zhuang Xiu led Lin Sun and Jun Huan into Green Bamboo Blessed Land, he seemed to be much more relaxed. Along the way, he smiled and pointed out the scenery they saw along the way. Jun Huan looked indifferent and didn't have much reaction. Lin Sun was interested and kept asking questions, looking curious. In fact, he was really shocked. This Green Bamboo Blessed Land was worthy of being a blessed land that was full of spirit and original. Just the primitive chaotic chi in the air was far from comparable to the outside world. If one were to cultivate here, even a pig would be able to gain sentience and cultivate the Tao. This analogy was by no means an exaggeration. At least in Lin Sun's opinion, this place was more than enough to satisfy the cultivation of a mortal level. If one grew up here and cultivated here, he wouldn't have to worry about not advancing by leaps and bounds on the road to cultivation. Compared with this, the sixth heaven, Dragon Spine Divine Mountain, where the Luo family occupied, was completely insignificant. A long time ago, the Luo family was also entrenched in the seventh heaven and occupied one of the 12 heavens, the Lotus Boat Heavenly Cave, which is even more beautiful than Green Bamboo Blessed Land. It belongs to the top pure land in the seventh heaven. It was also at this time that Lin Sun understood why the elders of the Lu family couldn't forget their former life in the seventh heaven. Dragon Spine Divine Mountain can't be compared with Green Bamboo Blessed Land at all, let alone Lotus Boat Paradise, one of the 12 heavens. It is worth mentioning that the current Lotus Boat Paradise is occupied by the Yun clan, one of the 4 East Imperial clans. That is, the clan where Yun Muzha is located. Senior, do you have 100,000 years old Thunderflame green bamboo in your hands? Seeing Zhuang Xiu talking about the Thunderflame green bamboo, Lin Sun asked curiously. Of course, Zhuang Xiu said without hesitation. Can I have a look? Lin Sun asked. Zhuang Xiu hesitated for a moment, then smiled and took out a piece of Thunderflame green bamboo and handed it to Lin Sun. Little friend, please have a look. This bamboo was as thick as an arm, and its whole body was green and translucent. Occasionally, a wisp of immortal white thunder flame flashed on the surface of the bamboo, exuding an amazing aura of destruction. Holding it in his hand, it weighed 100,000 pounds. Lin Sun looked at it and sighed with emotion. Green Bamboo Blessed Land is worthy of being one of the 36 blessed lands. It can produce such a wonderful and unpredictable immortal material. I'm a little reluctant to part with it. I just don't know if you are willing to part with it and give it to me as a gift. Jun Huan next to him was stunned, and his eyes became strange. Zhuang Xiu raised his eyelids and pondered for a moment. Then he laughed and said, "Since you like it, little friend, you can take it. Although this treasure is rare, I still have a lot of it." Although his words were forthright, his heart was bleeding. The Thunderflame green bamboo he showed Lin Sun before was 200,000 years old. Its value was amazing. It was originally one of the immortal materials in his collection. He took it out to show off and broaden the horizons of Lin Sun and Jun Huan, the 2 successors of Fong Siyuan. Who would have thought that Lin Sun did not play by the rules and asked for it shamelessly? This made Zhuang Xiu feel distressed and despise him. The current successor of Fong Siyuan was getting worse and worse. At this time, Lin Sun showed a look of surprise and said, "Senior, you still have more in stock?" Zhuang Xiu's heart trembled, and he said vaguely, "Just some ordinary goods, far from being comparable to the treasure in your hand." Lin Sun showed an embarrassed look and said, "Senior, I have a presumptuous request. Can you Zhuang Xiaowu had already guessed what Lin Sun wanted. His face was a little stiff, and he wished he could immediately cover Lin Sun's mouth. But Lin Sun did not realize it at all. He continued with a blush. Can you give me more? It's not because I'm greedy, but because I want to give such rare treasures to other senior brothers and sisters when I meet them in the future. I want them to know how extraordinary the green bamboo blessed land is. After hearing this, Zhuang Xiaowu felt blood rushing to his head. He wanted to strangle this little bastard in front of him. Did Lin Sun think 100,000 years old thunderflame green bamboo was cabbage? How could he ask for some so casually? But he could not get angry at this moment. Although he was so angry that he wanted to smash Lin Sun's embarrassed face, he could only bear it for the time being. He coughed and said, "If you really need it, it's not difficult. How about this? When you two leave, I will prepare a generous gift for each of you." Lin Sun said, "That's so embarrassing." Zhuang Xiaowu stopped talking. He was worried that if he heard Lin Sun's words again, he would be so angry that he could not control himself. Jun Huan had been watching and listening with a smile. He did not stop Lin Sun, nor did he say anything. "You two, this is the first choice place for our tribe to entertain distinguished guests. Please." When they arrived at a towering green mountain peak, Zhuang Xiaowu smiled and stepped aside to let Lin Sun and Jun Huan go first. But Lin Sun stopped and looked at the peak, saying, "This place is really extraordinary. It is covered with the power of order, and there are many restrictive formations. Ordinary people can't enter at all." Zhuang Xiaowu smiled and said, "Of course. After all, this is the core of our tribe." Lin Sun also smiled and said slowly, "But if you enter this mountain, I'm afraid it's not easy to get out." He looked at Zhuang Xiaowu. "What do you think, senior?" Chapter 2769. Zhuang Xiaowu was stunned for a moment and then laughed. "My little friend, you really know how to joke." Lin Sun smiled and said, "Senior, when I leave with my sister, don't forget the gift you promised us just now." Zhuang Xiaowu's smile suddenly froze. How could this bastard still think about this at this time? Lin Sun ignored Zhuang Xiaowu and walked up along the mountain road. From beginning to end, Jun Huan didn't say anything and just followed Lin Sun. Seeing this, the smile on Zhuang Xiaowu's face disappeared. He seemed to be more relaxed and walked up the mountain road. Halfway up the mountain, an ancient palace stood in the lush forest and luxuriant grass. There was no one in the palace. Or it could be said that there was not a single person on the entire mountain, not even servants or attendants. Standing in front of the main hall, Lin Sun turned to Zhuang Xiaowu and said with a smile, "Senior, are you going to apologize or solve the problem first?" Jun Huan stood beside Lin Sun and looked at Zhuang Xiaowu with a pair of clear eyes, looking indifferent. "Apologize?" Zhuang Xiaowu couldn't help laughing. The way he looked at Lin Sun and Jun Huan also changed, with a hint of pity. "You too, this mountain is called Condemnation. It is the core place where our clan imprisons and suppresses sinners. It has not been used for many years." Lin Sun said in surprise, "So, you don't want to apologize at all, but to imprison me and my sister here. Do you understand now?" Zhuang Xiaowu looked at them as if they were idiots and said sarcastically, "You, the descendants of Fang Siyuan, have been targeted by the top 10 giants of the 8th heaven. You're in such a dangerous situation, but you still dare to swagger around like this. How stupid you are." After a pause, he continued, "Of course, you don't have to worry. Our Zhuang family will not kill you for old time's sake, as long as you stay here obediently." Lin Sun was puzzled. "If you don't want to help us and don't want to apologize, why do you do this?" Zhuang Xiaowu said coldly, "Do you really want to know?" Lin Sun nodded. "Then I might as well tell you. A long time ago, my Zhuang family used our relationship with Zhuang Shirlu to form an alliance with one of the 10 undying giants, the Mu family. Speaking of this, a touch of pride appeared between Zhuang Xiaowu's eyebrows. He looked at Lin Sun coldly. "And you, boy, once killed Mu Yi, a noble of Mu family in the relics of the gods. Mu family has never forgotten this hatred." Lin Sun understood and said, "So, the Zhuang family is going to capture me and hand me over to the Mu family?" Zhuang Xiaowu's expression was indifferent as he said, "Originally, We didn't think of doing this at all. But who asked you to take the initiative to come knocking on our door? If you want to blame someone, blame your bad luck. You deserve this calamity. Senior sister, so we really fell for it. Lin Sun looked at Junhuan. Junhuan glared at him. Isn't that what you want to see the most? Lin Sun immediately smiled, seeing that the two of them were talking and laughing as if they didn't have the slightest awareness of being prisoners. Zhuang Xiuwu said vigilantly. The Condemnation Peak is covered with my clan's 9th level heaven rank sequence Calamity Rain. If you don't know what's good for you and try to resist, don't blame me for being rude. His voice was cold and threatening. Lin Sun laughed even more heartily. He looked at Zhuang Xiuwu with pity in his eyes and said, Old man, we originally planned to swallow our anger and not argue with the Zhuang family. But now, it seems that the Zhuang family is more than ungrateful. It's obvious that you're biting the hand that feeds you. Zhuang Xiuwu's face darkened. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Boom! A bamboo leaf jade pendant emerged between his fingers. As the jade pendant glowed, there were suddenly many. Pick convergence. Camphor fern at noon. However, the wisps of rain emitted a terrible aura of disaster and destruction. As soon as they appeared, they were like countless large nets that enveloped the heaven and earth. Calamity Rain, an incomparably magical 9th level heaven rank sequence power. At this time, Zhuang Xiuwu's expression also became cold. He didn't hide the contempt in his eyes. But what surprised him was that both Lin Sun and Junhuan seemed very calm. Their eyes were also looking at him with the same contempt and coldness. This was too abnormal. Zhuang Xiuwu's heart inexplicably surged with a bad feeling. Outside the Condemnation Peak, Patriarch Zhuang Bibai appeared with a group of big shots. Zhuang Bibai's hair was as black as ink. He was dressed in a bright yellow robe. His figure was majestic, and his square face was full of majesty. He himself is an immortal at the heavenly longevity realm. He has been in charge of the clan for 9,000 years. In comparison, he can be called a young patriarch, because in most of the immortal emperor clans in the 7th heaven, there are many patriarchs who have been in charge of the clan for tens of thousands of years. Speaking of which, he should thank his brother Zhuang Shirlu. If Zhuang Shirlu wasn't chosen to go to the Yuan sect's ancestral court to cultivate, the position of patriarch would have belonged to Zhuang Shirlu. However, Zhuang Shirlu is now a deacon of the Yuan sect's Yuanqing Pavilion. When it comes to status and power, he is far above the patriarch. In fact, because of Zhuang Shirlu, the Zhuang family has also obtained many benefits. The marriage with the Mu clan of the 8th heaven was facilitated by Zhuang Shirlu. Now, it has become a legend in the 7th heaven. Besides Zhuang Bibai, there were 5 or 6 men and women, all of whom were his trusted subordinates. Each of them had the cultivation of an immortal. If Junhuan was here, he would definitely recognize these people as the ones who mocked and ridiculed her when she first came to the Zhuang family. The great elder used the tribulation rain order. Someone said aloud, noticing that there was an astonishing fluctuation of order energy all over the Condemnation Peak. Those two are naturally unwilling to be imprisoned, so it's normal for them to resist. Someone chuckled, not caring at all. You can't blame our Zhuang family for being ruthless. Who made these evil remnants become street rats that everyone wants to kill? If we get involved with them, I'm afraid we will be treated as enemies by the 10 giants. Someone said coldly, that Lin Sun killed the youngest son of the Mu clan's patriarch, Mu Yi, and we have already established a marriage alliance with the Mu family. Naturally, we can't just stand by and watch. Everyone talked with a relaxed expression, not worried at all about what happened on the Condemnation Peak. This is their territory, and the Condemnation Peak is their core area. With the great elder Zhuang Xiuwu's immortal power and the power of the Nirvana God, how can he not deal with the 2 evil remnants? Remember, this matter can't be leaked out. If the evil remnants scattered in other places learn about it, they will definitely come to us. Although we are not afraid of them, it will still cause a lot of trouble. Zhuang Bibai said solemnly. Moreover, the master of the Heart Core helped our Zhuang family in the past. Once this matter spreads out, It will be a joke to the other forces in the seventh heaven. It will damage the prestige of our Zhuang family. Everyone nodded in unison. Boom! Shocking rumbles resounded from Condemnation Peak. The entire towering mountain shook violently, and the power of the layers of restrictions that covered the entire mountain began to fluctuate violently. This surprised many people. Don't be surprised. Junhuan is also a nirvana god. He must have some trump cards in his hands. He won't be suppressed so easily. Zhuang Bibai said indifferently with his hands behind his back. However, they won't be able to resist the power of the tribulation reign and are destined to be suppressed. Let's just wait here for the good news from the Great Elder. Patriarch is right. Everyone laughed, but not long after. Slap! A crisp slap resounded. Even though it was separated by layers upon layers of restrictive formations, it could be heard clearly. Immediately after, a scream like a pig being slaughtered rang out. All of a sudden, everyone was taken aback and immediately revealed a look of disbelief. This sound, why does it sound like it came from the Great Elder? Due to the layers of restrictions, their divine sense was blocked, and they couldn't see the scene inside the Condemnation Peak from the outside. Zhuang Bibai, who was calm and composed a moment ago, suddenly changed his expression. Not good. There's an accident. As he spoke, he immediately opened the restrictive power that covered the Condemnation Peak. Then his silhouette teleported and dashed over. The others didn't dare to delay and immediately followed him. Halfway up the mountain, the ancient buildings collapsed into ruins, and the rocks and plants were crushed into powder. Zhuang Xiuwu, a nirvana god, was pressed to the ground. His body was broken, his hair was disheveled, and his thin old face was red and swollen like a pig's head. Blood was dripping from his mouth, and many of his teeth were peeled off. Lin Sun rolled up his sleeves, opened his hands, and slapped Zhuang Xiuwu one after another. The sound of the slaps rang out like drumbeats. Crack! Crack! The mountain was full of crisp echoes. Jun Huan stood on one side, her pink robe fluttering, and her beautiful and delicate face was full of seriousness. She was counting the treasures found on Zhuang Xiuwu. Her rosy lips opened slightly, and she said quickly, "Little junior brother, this old fellow has 2 immortal Dao weapons and 3 Thunderflame green bamboos that are over 100,000 years old. Aside from that, he also has some immortal substances. He is not bad, but it is definitely not all he has." Hearing this, Lin Sun said, "In that case, this old guy's treasures should be growing in his body. Should we cut his stomach open?" On the ground, Zhuang Xiuwu, who was beaten beyond recognition, let out a shrill and angry scream. He felt great shame in his heart. As a nirvana god, he was also a powerful figure in the seventh heaven, but now he was pressed to the ground and beaten up. Since he started cultivating, when had he ever suffered such humiliation and abuse? Thinking of the scene of his defeat, Zhuang Xiuwu was angry and aggrieved, and his mind was a little muddled. He still couldn't understand it. Previously, he used the Order of Calamity Rain to suppress Jun Huan in one fell swoop, and then deal with Lin Sun. Unexpectedly, an accident happened to Lin Sun, who was ignored by him. Lin Sun only needed to activate a sword cauldron to block the attack of the Order of Calamity Rain. Seizing this opportunity, Jun Huan attacked and suppressed him with a single stroke of his sword. That sword was simply breathtaking, and it was one of the most terrifying swordsmanship Zhuang Xiuwu had ever seen in his life. In just an instant, the winner was decided. It was too terrible, but now, not only was his cultivation suppressed, even his treasures were taken away, and he was pressed to the ground and beaten by Lin Sun. The unprecedented sense of shame stabbed Zhuang Xiuwu's heart like a sharp knife, driving him crazy. Chapter 2770. When Zhuang Bibo and the others arrived, they were greeted by this horrifying scene. They were all stunned. How could the first elder, who was in charge of the Order of the Tribulation Reign, be beaten like this? "Stop!" Zhuang Bibo roared. His dignified square face was livid and murderous. "Don't worry." Lin Sun didn't even raise his head. Instead, a sharp saber appeared in his hand. "What are you going to do?" Zhuang Xiuwu, whose entire body was in tatters and on the verge of death, roared furiously. Of course I'm going to cut open his stomach, Lin Sun said, and stabbed the saber into Zhuang Xiuwu's stomach. Puff! Blood flowed out like a waterfall. Zhuang Xiuwu's body curled up from the pain. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. His cultivation was sealed, so he couldn't defend against such a heavy injury. This bloody scene made Zhuang Bibo and the others so angry that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. If you make a move, we'll kill this old man, Junhuan said coldly. One sentence made Zhuang Bibo and the others afraid of harming the innocent. They were both shocked and angered. This was their Zhuang clan's territory, but now they were being threatened. Quick, kill them. Kill them. Zhuang Xiuwu was like a madman. He felt like he was going to collapse after being humiliated like this. Slap. Lin Sun gave him a backhand slap. If you keep yelling, I'll kill you first. The fiery slap on Zhuang Xiuwu's face was like a slap on the faces of Zhuang Bibo and the others. It made them furious. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. What are you going to do? If we fight to the death, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave today. Zhuang Bibo took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Junhuan said with a smile, take out 10,000 kilograms of immortal substance and 300,000 years old thunderflame bamboo, and we'll leave immediately. Zhuang Bibo and the others couldn't believe their ears. 10,000 kilograms of immortal substance. 300,000 years old thunderflame bamboo. This was more than an exorbitant demand. This was practically eating their flesh and sucking their blood. What? The life of a Nirvana realm cultivator is not worth these worldly possessions? Junhuan said indifferently. Puchi. In the splashing blood, Lin Sun took out a treasure in the shape of a pagoda from Zhuang Xiuwu's body. It was the size of a fist and had 9 floors. The eaves of the pagoda were in the shape of plum blossoms. The body of the pagoda was green, as if it was made of divine jade. The surface of the pagoda was branded with mysterious patterns of thunder and clouds, which were dazzling. Shockingly, it was an extremely precious eternal artifact of the Tao, and it emanated an extremely shocking eternal aura and shocking divinity. Instantly, Zhuang Xiuwu, who was heavily injured and on the verge of death, simply seemed as if the flesh in his heart had been dug out, and his expression warped as he struggled madly and howled. My lightning flame Tao Pagoda. No, stop him. Zhuang Bibo and the others were enraged, but they did not dare to move. No matter how precious the treasure was, it was not as important as Zhuang Xiuwu's life. Junhuan smiled and said, if you don't agree, then I'm afraid this old man will. Zhuang Bibo's face darkened. If we agree to your conditions, will you really let the great elder go? Junhuan said indifferently. We, Fangsuan's successor, are not like some clans that go back on their words and go back on their promises. We always keep our word. He was mocking the Zhuang clan for biting the hand that fed them. Sure enough, the expressions of the Zhuang clan became more and more unsightly. Fine, I agree. Zhuang Bibo's eyes were red, and his voice was squeezed out through his teeth. Junhuan suddenly laughed and said, Junior brother, be gentle. Don't hurt the foundation of the great elder. In that case, the Zhuang clan will perish together with us. Lin Sun stood up and said, Senior sister, are we just going to let it go? Junhuan shrugged and said, with our ability, we can't occupy the blessed land of green bamboo. Even if we occupy it, we won't be able to keep it for too long. In that case, let them have it this time. Lin Sun sighed softly. This is the only way. When the time is right, I will take back the blessed land of green bamboo. At that time, even if I give the blessed land of green bamboo to a dog, it will be better than leaving it to those ungrateful, shameless, and despicable things. Every word of the two was like a sharp sword, provoking the expressions of the big shots of the Zhuang clan. They almost couldn't suppress the killing intent in their hearts. Zhuang Bibo couldn't listen to them anymore, so he directly interrupted. You two, the immortal substance and thunderflame bamboo, you need time to prepare. If you trust me, give me some time. I promise to get it for you. Do you think we will still trust the Zhuang clan? Lin Sun sneered. Jun Huan said, "How about this? Hand over all the treasures you have." "No way. You've gone too far. My mountain is such a bully." The big shots of the Zhuang clan shouted angrily. They had never experienced the feeling of being blackmailed like this. "No way." Jun Huan's eyes became cold. "If that's the case, don't blame us for being impolite." Seeing this, Zhuang Bibo ordered with a livid face, "Quick, take out all the treasures you have." The crowd hesitated. Someone couldn't help but ask, what if they go back on their words after taking the treasures? Zhuang Bibo said fiercely, "If they dare to do that, no matter what price they have to pay, I won't let them step out of the blessed land of green bamboo." He took out his treasures first. Seeing this, the crowd made up their minds and took out their treasures one by one. Junhuan turned his hand over, and an antique bronze mirror appeared in his palm. He said with a smile, "This mirror is called Spirit Cave, Divine Mirror. It can see through all kinds of treasures in the world. That is to say, if you have hidden treasures that you haven't handed over, they will be exposed under the light of this mirror. Do you want to have a try?" Suddenly, the big shots of the Zhuang clan, including Zhuang Bibo, changed their expressions slightly. They almost cursed in their hearts. Who would have thought that Jun Huan had such treasures? How cruel! Zhuang Bibo waved his hand and spat out a word. "Hand them over." He had hidden some treasures himself, but he had to hand them over now. No matter how reluctant the others were, they had to hand over their treasures one by one. Seeing Lin Sun put away those treasures one by one with a bright smile, these big shots of the Zhuang clan were so angry that their lungs almost exploded. Those treasures were the result of their painstaking efforts and couldn't be measured by value at all. But now they were all swept away. "Now, you should hand them over, right?" Zhuang Bibo said coldly. "What's the hurry? After we leave the blessed land of green bamboo, we will fulfill our promise." As Jun Huan said, he picked up the seriously injured and dying Zhuang Xiuwu and said, "Now, you lead the way. I advise you not to play any tricks." Zhuang Bibo turned around and left without hesitation. He was worried that if he delayed any longer, he would be so angry that he would suffer internal injuries. The other big shots of the Zhuang clan followed closely, staring at Jun Huan and Lin Sun, as if they were ready to fight at any time. But Jun Huan didn't seem to feel it. Lin Sun followed Zhuang Bibo at a leisurely pace. "Senior sister, lend me your spirit cave, divine mirror. I want to see if I can find some good treasures along the way," Lin Sun said. There were many magical medicines and materials in the blessed land of green bamboo. For Lin Sun, since he had nothing to do, he might as well continue to search for treasures. Hearing this, the faces of Zhuang Bibo and the others turned green. This little thing was simply insane. However, Jun Huan shook his head with a smile. "Little junior brother, I was just deceiving them. What divine cave spirit mirror? That's just a mirror I used to dress up. I never imagined that these fellows would really fall for it. Haha, isn't it very interesting?" Puff. Lin Sun couldn't help laughing. Senior sister Jun Huan was too good at deceiving people. Even he didn't see a clue before. As the old saying goes, the more beautiful a woman is, the more difficult it is to guard against her deceiving people. Looking at Zhuang Bibo and the others, their faces were as black as the bottom of a pot, and the veins on their foreheads were bulging. They looked depressed as if they had eaten a fly. You descendants of Mine Mountain also play this kind of little trick. You are just downright liars. Shame. One of them said angrily. I asked you to hand over the treasure, but you didn't behave. Can you blame me? Jun Huan snorted coldly. What's more, I am a liar. You have lived for so many years, but you still fell for it. Aren't you too stupid? Lin Sun laughed so hard that his stomach hurt. For the first time, he found that senior sister Jun Huan's temperament was simply infuriating. As long as she wanted to, she could definitely make people run around in circles. Along the way, there were no twists and turns or accidents. Obviously, the status of the first elder Zhuang Xiuwu was so important that Zhuang Bibo and the others didn't dare to play any tricks along the way, until they walked out of green bamboo blessed land. Zhuang Bibo said with a gloomy face, It's time for you to fulfill your promise. The big shots of Zhuang family nearby were ready for battle, their eyes fixed on Jun Huan and Lin Sun. Jun Huan looked around, then looked at green bamboo blessed land, and said, "Junior brother, if my guess is right, they have already discussed in secret. After we hand over the treasure, they will definitely attack us at the first time." Lin Sun said, "Then what should we do?" Zhuang Bibo said angrily, "Are you going to go back on your words?" The others also looked unfriendly, full of killing intent. Since the beginning of Accusation Peak, they had been controlled by one hand. They had been suppressing their hatred and anger for a long time, and were almost out of control. Jun Huan chuckled and said, "I forgot to tell you just now. Our mountain of mind and heart will only keep our promises to those who keep their promises. Towards people like you who bite the hand that feeds you and go back on your word, we will only return the favor." As she spoke, she suddenly raised her hand, and a strange black jade talisman appeared in the void. Boom! While her voice was still floating in the air, the black jade talisman suddenly turned into a rain of order light, sweeping and spreading. Zhuang Bibo and the others dodged at the first moment, and, at the same time, they did not hesitate to display the killing means that they had been preparing for a long time. But in just a moment, the figures of Jun Huan and Lin Sun disappeared into thin air. It was not teleportation, nor was it flying. It was as if they were directly taken away by the rules of space between heaven and earth, and disappeared without a trace. Witnessing this scene, Zhuang Bibo and the others were dumbfounded. They were caught unprepared by this scene. They just disappeared in front of their eyes, without leaving any trace. P.S. The college entrance exam will be held tomorrow. I wish everyone good luck with your writing skills. Chapter 2771. In an instant, all of them disappeared. Even the great elder Zhuang Xiuwu, who was held hostage, disappeared. This irritated Zhuang Bibo and the others. This descendant of Fang Siyuan is simply too despicable. Someone cursed angrily. She was so beautiful, but she turned out to be a big liar. Someone's face twitched in anger. My treasures are gone just like that. Some people's hearts were dripping blood as they mourned the loss of their treasures. What are you waiting for? Chase them. Kill the 2 remaining members of Fang Siyuan and rescue the great elder. Zhuang Bibo let out a deafening roar. He was furious, and his eyes were bloodshot. This time, their original plan was to capture Lin Sun and Jun Huan. Who would have thought that the great elder would be captured first, then they would be cheated of their treasures, and now the enemy had disappeared without a trace. This series of blows made Zhuang Bibo cough up blood. An unprecedented sense of humiliation, anger, and hatred hit his heart like a tsunami, making him tremble all over, and his vision turned black. If this matter were spread, the Zhuang family would become the biggest joke in the 7th heaven. An indifferent, hoarse, old voice sounded. If the descendants of Fang Siyuan were so easy to deal with, I'm afraid they would have been wiped out a long time ago. Zhuang Bibo suddenly turned around and saw a figure that looked like a 5- or 6-year-old child walking out of the green bamboo blessed land. "Ancestor, why are you here?" Zhuang Bibo's body stiffened, and he hurriedly saluted. The figure that looked like a child was actually an old ancestor of the Zhuang family. His name was Zhuang Longxiang, and his seniority was extremely high. For the past 10,000 years, Zhuang Longxiang had been in seclusion in order to break through to the realm of transcendence. Such a big movement happened, and no one was alarmed. Zhuang Longxiang looked like a child, but his voice was hoarse, old, and indifferent. It turns out that Ancestor already knew about it. Zhuang Bibo's face stiffened, and a strong sense of shame surged in his heart. Zhuang Longxiang glanced at him and said, "This matter ends here. There is no need to pursue it anymore." But the great elder, Zhuang Bibo said, "Life and death are up to fate." Zhuang Longxiang's tone was indifferent and unusually calm. Zhuang Bibo's expression changed. "Ancestor, our Zhuang clan has suffered such a great loss. Are we just going to let it go? Originally, even if you all wanted to draw a clear line between yourselves and Fang Siyuan's successor, there was no need for you all to do so. Yet now, You've completely enraged Fong Cun's successor. Zhuang Longxiang's eyes were clear, as if he had no emotions. Zhuang Bibo said bitterly, "We wanted to give the Mu clan a surprise, but who would have thought that those two bastards would be so cunning and cruel? What's done is done. There's no point in being angry and regretful." Zhuang Longxiang said, "What you should consider now is how to deal with the aftermath." Dealing with the aftermath? Zhuang Bibo squinted his eyes and cupped his fists. "Please enlighten me, ancestor." Zhuang Longxiang snorted coldly. "As the head of a clan, you want me to teach you this kind of thing? Compared to your elder brother Zhuang Shirlu, you are indeed lacking." With that, he turned around and left. Zhuang Bibai stood in place, his expression uncertain. After a long time, he took a deep breath and returned to green bamboo blessed land. Not long after, Zhuang Bibo ordered in the name of the patriarch to block all the news related to Jun Huan and Lin Sun that happened today. This was to prevent the Zhuang clan from becoming a joke in the world and damaging their reputation. At the same time, he personally wrote a letter, writing everything that happened today. On the same day, he sent it to the Yuanqing Pavilion of the ancestral court of the Yuan sect. Zhuang Bibo knew that Lin Sun might be able to escape, but sooner or later he would go to the ancestral court of the Yuan sect. This letter was written to his elder brother Zhuang Shirlu. Finally, Zhuang Bibo sent a force to spread the news to the outside world. Fong Cun's Lin Sun has appeared in the seventh heaven and will participate in the public selection of the ancestral court of the Yuan sect. When he learned this, Zhuang Longxiang, who looked like a child, couldn't help but nod secretly. Zhuang Bibo only did 3 things: blocking the news of the Zhuang clan's disaster, sending a letter to Zhuang Shirlu, and announcing the news to the outside world. Especially the third thing. He could be said to be shrewd and ruthless. In these years, Lin Sun's infamy had already spread throughout the eternal world. Countless immortal forces regarded him as their enemy. Once the news of his appearance in the seventh heaven came out, how could these forces that hated him sit back and do nothing? This was called adding fuel to the fire and killing with a borrowed knife. Their Zhuang clan suffered a great loss. But as long as Lin Sun participated in the selection of the Yuan sect's ancestral court, all kinds of murderous tribulations would fall on Lin Sun's head. Even if Lin Sun escaped from danger and successfully entered the Yuan sect's ancestral court, what awaited him was still Zhuang Shilu's revenge. With Zhuang Shilu's status as the deacon of Yuanqing Pavilion, how could Lin Sun contend with the authority he held? Although Bibo doesn't have the great talent and bold vision of Zhuang Shirlu, his reaction and actions this time are not bad. He didn't disappoint me. Zhuang Longxiang nodded secretly. Cold Moon City, a famous and bustling city in the central main region. Cloudgar House, an ordinary refining shop in Cold Moon City, located in the depths of a remote alley. In fact, although this alley was remote, it wasn't deserted. There are dozens of shops of various sizes, including medicine shops, restaurants, tea houses. Cloudguard House has been closed recently, and the door was closed. Inside the Cloudguard House, in the depths of an ancient well covered with moss, with a wave of void fluctuations, the figures of Jun Huan and Lin Sun appeared out of thin air. When they walked out of the ancient well and looked at the simple and ancient courtyard, Lin Sun couldn't help but be startled. "Senior sister, where is this?" "Cold Moon City. Since I arrived in the seventh heaven with Big Brother, I have been dormant here," Jun Huan said casually. Lin Sun was confused. How far is this place from green bamboo blessed land? At least 1,000,000 miles away, right? Jun Huan said with a smile. "You don't have to worry about the Zhuang clan catching up. Do you know what the jade talisman I just used? It's called Seamless Proximity, and it contains the miraculous energy of the Order of Space at the 9th grade of the Heaven rank. So long as it's utilized, then no matter where you are in the central main region, you could be teleported here in an instant." Lin Sun was moved. He finally understood why they could get away so easily in front of green bamboo blessed land. It turned out that the black jade talisman was actually an incredible treasure. "Here, keep this immeasurable distance talisman. I don't have much left. Jun Huan stretched out his hand and handed a black jade talisman to Lin Sun. When Big Brother took us to the sixth heaven, he accidentally subdued a strand of near order, and then third senior sister refined it into more than 70 near order talismans and distributed them to everyone. She then pointed at the ancient well next to her and said, "The origin of order is sealed under this ancient well." Lin Sun suddenly understood. He carefully kept the seamless near talisman and smiled. "Senior sister, if I knew you had such a treasure, I wouldn't have done it when I was in green bamboo blessed land. I should have made a big fuss." Jun Huan rolled her eyes and said, "Don't underestimate the Zhuang family. If we really fight to the death, we won't be able to escape so easily with our means." With that, she led Lin Sun into the main hall of the courtyard. This courtyard didn't seem to occupy a large area, but in fact, there was another universe inside, like a folded secret realm space. It was quite mysterious. When he walked into the main hall, Lin Sun's vision blurred, and then he appeared in a quiet and peaceful world. There were green mountains and clear waters, fragrant vegetation, and many buildings scattered in different areas. According to Jun Huan, the descendants of Fang Siyuan were dormant here. "Little junior brother, the other senior brothers and sisters are not here now. Before the selection of the ancestral court of Yuan religion, how about you and I temporarily live here?" Jun Huan said, blinking her beautiful eyes at Lin Sun, and her voice was soft. "In other words, in the next period of time, we will live together under the same roof." It was full of flirting. Lin Sun had already adapted to the style of this senior sister's speech. He cleverly changed the topic. "Senior sister, what are you going to do with Zhuang Xiuwu?" "Kill him." Jun Huan casually said, "I hate ungrateful people the most in my life, and this Zhuang family is far more than just ungrateful. They've already repaid kindness with enmity. Since that's the case, what's the point of keeping that old thing?" At this moment, Lin Sun couldn't help but think of the praise of momentary Tao is the most romantic. It was indeed worthy of its name. From this day on, Jun Huan and Lin Sun settled in the cloud guarding house. It was not until later that Lin Sun knew that the so-called cloud guarding house was derived from the meaning of "when the clouds disperse, the moon shines brightly," which represented a state of mind that all the successors of Fang Siyuan had. Sooner or later, the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven will be overthrown. Just a few days after Lin Sun and Jun Huan arrived at the cloud guarding house in Cold Moon City, a piece of news came out, causing a sensation in the 7th heaven. Lin Sun, the remnant of Fang Siyuan, appeared in the 7th heaven and will participate in the public selection of the ancestral court of Yuan religion. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples, and countless uproars and surprised voices sounded. "Isn't this Lin Sun too strong? He hasn't suffered a disaster until now." No one expected that Lin Sun, who has attracted the attention of the world over the years and was hated by countless immortal forces, could still survive from the 1st heaven to the 7th heaven. This was beyond people's expectations. This kid is too bold. He even plans to enter the ancestral court of Yuan religion. Isn't he worried that once his traces are exposed, it will lead to a disaster? Many people were stunned and couldn't believe it. Where's this Lin Sun now? Who knows? He must be hiding somewhere. But as long as he dares to appear in the public selection of the ancestral court of Yuan religion, he will definitely become the target of public criticism. All kinds of discussions sounded in the central main domain of the 7th heaven and the 4 major star realms. In short, Lin Sun's appearance indeed set off a monstrous wave, attracting the attention of countless people in the 7th heaven. If it was anyone else, even an immortal, they probably wouldn't be able to cause such a big commotion. But Lin Sun was different. As early as outside the mysterious realm of the boundless 1,000 battle domain, his fierce name had spread to the eternal true domain. In recent years, starting from the 1st heaven, he set off a storm of blood, causing a great sensation. It's hard not to be noticed. For the Zhuang family, this is exactly what they want to see. The storm against Lin Sun has already been set off. When will the swords in the hands of those enemies fall? Zhuang Bibo was looking forward to it. The entire Zhuang family was looking forward to it. Chapter 2772. Ziwei Star Field. The seventh heaven is one of the four major star fields. In the Ziwei star field, there are 12 heavens, namely the Xuanji Cave, the Alcade Cave, and the Mizar Cave. The Dugu family of the immortal Emperor clan is entrenched in the Xuanji Cave. On the shore of a lake in the Xuanji Cave, there is a beautiful pavilion built. The lake shimmered, and the breeze blew gently. Dugu Yuran sat leisurely in front of the table, her snow-white arms supporting her chin. Her beautiful black hair fell to her slender waist like a waterfall. Her white and beautiful oval face was covered with a layer of holy luster under the soft light of the sky. She was wearing a plain light blue dress, sitting cross-legged. The curve of her buttocks and waist outlined a beautiful arc. Her rosy lips were lightly pursed, and her starry eyes were large and clear. She sat there quietly, like a painting. Everything in the world had become a foil and embellishment for her. When he inadvertently saw such a scene, Yin Muzha, who was sitting not far away and studying scriptures, was slightly shocked, and his heart couldn't help but ripple. Among the four major clans of the Eastern Emperor, only the Yun clan is entrenched in the Alcade Cave of the Ziwei Star Field. The other three clans are located in the Cyan Light Star Field. The Yun clan and the Dugu clan have been on good terms for generations, and there have been many marriages between them. According to seniority, Yin Muzha is Dugu Yuran's distant cousin. Because of the good relationship between the two families, the two have known each other since childhood and can be called childhood sweethearts. Even now, Yin Muzha has long been one of the top 10 emperor ancestors in the seventh heaven. He often comes to the Dugu clan to accompany Dugu Yuran. The people of the Dugu clan aren't stupid. How can they not see the friendship between Yin Muzha and Dugu Yuran? Therefore, they're very happy to see the two together. However, Dugu Yuran is obviously indifferent to Yin Muzha's love. This gives her father, the current patriarch of the Dugu clan, Dugu Xiao, a headache. In the past few years, Dugu Xiao had also tried to arrange a marriage for Dugu Yuran. However, Dugu Yuran had repeatedly objected to it. A few years ago, Dugu Yuran even snuck out of the clan and headed to the Great Thousand Battle Domain to escape from his blind date. In the end, although she was brought back by Yin Muzha, Dugu Xiao did not dare to speak a word about marriage, for fear that his most pampered and treasured daughter would leave home again. Right now, Dugu Xiao's only wish was to be able to send Dugu Yuran into the Yuan sect's ancestral court to cultivate. Yuran, what are you thinking about? Yin Muzha couldn't help but ask when he saw that Dugu Yuran was in a daze for a long time. Dugu Yuran casually said, "Cousin, how many successors do you think the Yuan sect's ancestral court will recruit this time?" Yin Muzha smiled and said, "Are you worried about this matter? There's no need for that. With the relationship between our two families, it's enough for us to steadily enter the Origin sect's ancestral court to cultivate." He paused for a moment before he said, "At that time, it's very likely that we'll join the Yuan sect's second peak to cultivate." Dugu Yuran grunted in response. He wasn't surprised. This was because the peak master of the Yuan sect's second peak was an ancestor from the Yun clan. His name was Yun Tianming, and according to seniority, he was Yin Muzha's great-grandfather. Yin Muzha seemed to have thought of something as he said in high spirits. "Furthermore, with our talent and foundation, as long as we enter the Yuan sect's ancestral court, we'll be able to become a core successor of the second peak in a few years. At that time, with your great-grandfather's help, it'll be as easy as lifting a finger for us to become disciples of the Origin Void Pavilion." The Origin Void Pavilion was in charge of passing down martial arts, and Dugu Yuran's great-grandfather was Yuan Su. He was one of the 3 deputy pavilion masters of the pavilion, and his status was frighteningly high. In comparison, Yin Muzha's great-grandfather, Yin Tianming, who was the peak master of the second peak, was much inferior. But it was very obvious that Dugu Yuran wasn't interested in these things and was absent-minded. To Dugu Yuran, the purpose of cultivation was very simple. It was nothing more than 8 words: carefree and unfettered, enjoying life. He didn't care about fame and fortune. But obviously, this wasn't the case for Yin Muzha. He was the most dazzling, peerless figure of this generation of the Yun clan, one of the top 10 emperor ancestors of the seventh heaven, and also the young patriarch of the Yun clan. As long as he achieves immortality, he will slowly hand over the power of the Yun clan to Yun Muja. Dugi Yuran was very clear that Yun Muja had an even greater ambition, that is to let the Yun clan get rid of its dependence on the eighth heaven, the Dongwon clan, and no longer be suppressed by the Dongwon clan. With this ambition, of course, he would get the appreciation and support of many great figures of the Yun clan. Even her father, Dugu Xiao, admired Yun Muja's courage and thought that he was a promising young man with a bright future. It's just that for Dugi Yuran, who was indifferent and only wanted to live a happy life, she couldn't appreciate him at all. Yun Muja also understood Dugi Yuran's temperament and said softly, "Yuran, I know you don't like to hear these things, but you can rest assured that I will do the things you don't like, and I will use all my power to ensure that you won't be bothered by these things for the rest of your life." Dugi Yuran didn't comment. She stared at the lake in the distance, lost in thought. However, she felt slightly disappointed in her heart. Before this, she asked Yun Muja how many successors the Origin sect would recruit this time around. However, Yun Muja's answer had nothing to do with this question. His words were filled with longing for entering the second peak and his desire to become a successor of the Origin Void Pavilion. Their thoughts and answers were all different. "Miss, there's news." Suddenly, a crisp and joyful voice rang out. Following that, the clever and beautiful maid Duo hurriedly walked in, waving a jade slip in her hand. When she saw Yun Muja, the maid Duo was slightly startled. She stuck out her tongue and said, "So, young Master Yun is here too." Yun Muja smiled. Duo, what good news is there? Why are you so happy?" Duo was Dugi Yuran's personal maid. Although they were called maids, they were actually like sisters. Their relationship was extremely close. If it was someone else who dared to barge into the pavilion without greeting him, Yun Muja wouldn't have such a good temper. It's not that he was narrow-minded, but that his temperament was like this. Rules are rules. How can he let others casually offend and trample on them? Duo hesitated and glanced at Dugi Yuran. Dugi Yuran glared at her angrily. "What are you doing? Quickly show me." Duo sighed and handed over the jade slip. Dugi Yuran opened the jade slip and had a look, and his eyes that were clear like a lake were suffused with extraordinary splendor, while a wisp of a light smile couldn't help but suffuse the corners of his mouth. He said, "This fellow really is as I expected. He's still alive and well until now." Duo pursed her lips and smiled. "Yes, in these years, I don't know how many rumors have said that he will inevitably die. But now, he has come to the seventh heaven and is going to participate in the Origin sect's ancestral court selection." Dugi Yuran stretched her graceful waist. Her brows were filled with a smile as she said, "I already knew that he wasn't the kind of person who would stay put. This is good as well. If he can enter the Origin religion's ancestral court, then we can meet again." Yunja, who saw all of these scenes, felt slightly uncomfortable in his heart, and he seemed as if he was disregarded, especially when Dugi Yuran and Duo were talking about another person. This made him feel even more uncomfortable. However, these subtle emotions were well concealed by Yun Muja. At this time, he asked with a smile, "Who are you talking about?" "Lin's son." Dugi Yuran turned around, her starry eyes looking at Yun Muja. Her lips slightly parted, revealing her pearly white teeth. She said with a sweet smile, "Back then, in the ninth heaven pass of the vast thousand battles domain, my cousin also saw him. It's him." Yun Muja was startled. His memory wasn't bad. Back then, he went to the vast thousand battles domain alone to bring Dugi Yuran home. At that banquet, he saw Lin Sun once. At that time, in his eyes, Lin Sun was just an unsightly great emperor. But Yun Muja didn't expect that such an unsightly character not only left the ninth heaven pass alive, but also survived the battle of the god's secret realm. And in recent years, as he talked about this person from the first heaven to the sixth heaven, the entire immortal heaven domain was talking about him. All of this was completely out of Yun Muja's expectations, because when he left the ninth heaven pass, He personally warned City Lord Bai Jianshun that he didn't want to see Lin Sun appear in the Eternal World. But obviously, Bai Jianshun didn't do it that time. As a result, every time he heard rumors about Lin Sun, an indescribable anger surged in Yun Muja's heart. It was like an ant that could be crushed to death at any time, but not only did it not die, it even lived like a divine dragon in the sky. Even in terms of fame, he, one of the 10 great emperor ancestors of the seventh heaven, was far less famous than Lin Sun. This made Yun Muja's heart feel uncomfortable. It wasn't jealousy, it was regret. He regretted not killing Lin Sun himself. However, even Yun Muja didn't expect that the person Dugi Yuran and Duo would be talking about at this moment would be Lin Sun. This made him frown imperceptibly. Dugi Yuran didn't notice this at all. She didn't know that in the Ninth Heaven Pass, Yun Muja had borrowed Bai Jianshun's hand to kill Lin Sun. She handed the jade slip to Yun Muja with a smile and said, "Cousin, look, Lin Sun has actually come to the seventh heaven." Yun Muja secretly suppressed the displeasure in his heart and nodded with a smile. He opened the jade slip and immediately raised his eyebrows. If this is true, when Lin Sun goes to the Origin Sect's ancestral court, he will definitely be killed. It is very likely that he won't even be able to keep his life. Blood on the first prick. However, this answer was obviously not what Dugi Yuran wanted. She said angrily, "Why is cousin like those people in the outside world when talking about Lin Sun? Why can't you wait for him to suffer? What's more, over the years, I don't know how many people thought that he would die, but now you know that he is still alive and living very well." After saying that, Dugi Yuran took back the jade slip, turned around, and said, "I want to be alone. All of you leave here first." Duo was startled, nodded obediently, and left. She had served Dugi Yuran for many years, so she could tell that Dugi Yuran was a little angry. A trace of haze appeared on Yun Muja's face. He was very surprised. Just a sentence, just an analysis of Lin Sun's situation, had annoyed his cousin? Why did she care so much about Lin Sun? I wish everyone a happy Dragon Boat Festival. I wish the children's shoes of the college entrance examination success. Chapter 2773. The atmosphere in the attic was gloomy. Dugi Yuran sat by the lake without saying a word. Looking at her beautiful figure, Yun Muja's heart surged with unspeakable anger, and his mood fluctuated. No one knew that he regarded Dugi Yuran as his exclusive property. But now, Dugi Yuran was angry because of another man. This touched the bottom line of Yun Muja, who had always been as calm as a rock. He wanted to ask why. For so many years, they had grown up together, cultivated together, and spent time together. How deep their feelings for each other were. But now, he couldn't compete with a remnant of the heart core. But Yun Muja finally restrained himself. He knew Dugi Yuran's character too well. She had a unique stubbornness in her bones. Saying anything at this time would only make her dislike him even more. In the end, Yun Muja got up and shook his head bitterly. "Yuran, then I'll go first." After saying that, he left directly. Until his figure disappeared, Dugi Yuran couldn't help but sigh. How could she not know her cousin's mind? But in her heart, she just regarded him as her cousin. You have your pursuit, and I have my own ideas. How can we force each other to be together? Dugi Yuran murmured in her heart. She looked at the jade slip in her hand, and couldn't help laughing as she thought of the bits and pieces of her acquaintance with Lin Sun in the vast Thousand Battle Realm. This fellow's life was really tough. Outside the attic, when alone, Yun Muja no longer concealed the fluctuations in his heart, so that his incomparably handsome face was also flickering. Lin Sun, after a long time, Yun Muja took a deep breath, and his eyes were filled with determination. Bai Jianshun didn't kill Lin Sun that year. This time, he would do it himself. Tianxian Star Region. The Great Spirit Wonderland, one of the 12 paradises, was located there. The Great Spirit Wonderland was the place where the immortal Emperor clan, the Zhou clan, resided. Xian Zhouyin was lying on a soft couch, leisurely drinking wine from a sapphire wine gourd. The ancestor of the Zhou clan, Zhou Bowen, sat on one side with a wry smile. Even though he was in existence at the Nirvana God Paramount stage, an old man with great prestige in the Zhou clan. But at this moment, Zhou Bowen seemed very helpless when facing Xian Jiuyin. After a while, Zhou Bowen said, "Little friend, why don't you follow me to the Origin Sect's ancestral court and ask Deputy Pavilion Master Xian personally?" Xian Jiuyin shook his head. "No. If I go, and I'm the only one locked up, wouldn't we all be doomed? Senior, why don't you bring Xian Yu along as well?" This, Zhou Bowen hesitated. Xian Jiuyin let out a long sigh as he sat up from the soft couch, and his expression was downcast as he said, "Alas, I traversed the starry sky, experienced hardships, and risked my life to arrive at the great spirit abode with great difficulty. Now, I merely raised a tiny request, yet Senior isn't willing to agree. Isn't this too unreasonable?" Zhou Bowen almost wanted to roll his eyes. What danger? Risking his life? With the power of the Xian clan mobilizing, how could they let a little bastard like you encounter any difficulties? Besides, once they arrived in Eternal True World, he had sent the power of the Zhou clan to personally receive them. They provided them with good food and drinks on the way, so when did they ever suffer? However, Zhou Bowen could only curse silently. He had no choice. Although Xian Jiuyin was a little bastard, he had an ancestor who was the deputy pavilion head of the Yuan sect's Yuankong Pavilion, Xian Failing. Xian Jiuyin's great ancestor, Xian Failing, and the Zhou clan's sixth ancestor, Zhou Zhongdao, were sworn brothers. The two of them had a close relationship and had traveled the world together, experiencing life and death tribulations. In Zhou Zhongdao's eyes, Xian Failing's great-great-grandson was also Zhou Zhongdao's great-great-grandson. Zhou Bowen was 2 ranks lower than Zhou Zhongdao. Under such circumstances, how would he dare to slight the little bastard, Xian Jiuyin? This was called being blessed by the ancestors. Senior, how about this? I'll bring Xian Yu with me to the Origin Sect's ancestral court. If my great ancestor blames me, I'll bear the consequences myself. Xian Jiuyin begged shamelessly. Is Lady Xian Yu really that important? You said before that she's not your partner, Zhou Bowen said suspiciously. Xian Jiuyin said in annoyance, Senior, what are you thinking? Lady Xian Yu and I are good friends that the heavens and earth can bear witness to. We've been through life and death together. Besides, I'm the one who brought her to the eternal true world. How can I leave her alone? Honestly, we can let her stay in the Zhou clan. We won't treat her lightly. Forget it. Pretend I didn't say anything. When Zhou Bowen saw that Xian Jiuyin's expression was off, he smiled wryly and shook his head. Senior, it's really not that I'm being unreasonable, and I'm not using my great ancestor's name to act like a tyrant. It's just that if Xian Yu can't go to the Origin Sect's ancestral court, I won't go either. When the conversation reached this point, Xian Jiuyin felt tired. It was just bringing Xian Yu to the Origin Sect's ancestral court. Was it so difficult? How could Zhou Bowen not feel tired? He fell silent for a long time when he saw this, and then he sighed. Fine, I'll agree to it. However, I can't guarantee that the Origin Sect's ancestral court will allow Miss Xian Yu to stay. Xian Jiuyin beamed with joy and said, Thank you, Senior. This is enough. When we reach the Origin Sect's ancestral court, I will naturally seek great ancestors' help. Zhou Bowen could not help but ask, Little friend, are you really not interested in that Lady Xian Yu? Xian Jiuyin took a deep breath and said seriously, Senior, I'll say it one more time. I've always treated Xian Yu as my younger sister in my heart, in the past and in the future. Zhou Bowen left not long after. Xian Jiuyin, on the other hand, excitedly went to find Jin Tian Xianwei. He wanted to tell the other party the good news. Lin Sun, I finally brought Xian Yu here. It would be great if you two could have a good ending in the future. If not, all my efforts would be in vain, Xian Jiuyin muttered in his heart. He has heard the news that Lin Sun appeared in the seventh heaven, and that Lin Sun will go to the Origin Sect's ancestral court in 3 years. Therefore, this time, no matter what, he had to bring Jin Tian Xian Yu. How could such a good girl be left alone and destitute? The news of Lin Sun's appearance in the seventh heaven was also known by those hostile forces. For example, the 4 major clans of the East Emperor. and some other immortal forces related to the top 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven. However, the seventh heaven is too vast and boundless. Trying to find a person is no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. As a result, although the news spread and everyone in the world knows, no one knows where Lin Sun is now. But everyone is sure that as long as Lin Sun dares to appear in the grand meeting of the Origin Sect's ancestral court 3 years later, he is destined to become the target of public criticism. Cold Moon City. Recently, people living near the alley found that the Cloud Guard shop, which had been closed for a long time, opened again. The shop was guarded by a handsome young man. He was the only one in the shop, so people speculated that he should be a refiner himself. It's just that, perhaps because of his unfamiliar appearance, the business seems very quiet. People often see that as long as this young man has nothing to do, he will put a rocking chair in front of the shop and lie lazily in it to bask in the sun for a whole day. Even if someone asks about the refining business, he answers absent-mindedly and asks for an extremely high price. He often quotes a sky-high price that people can't accept. It's simply an exorbitant price. As a result, the originally bad business has become even more deserted. But obviously, this young man doesn't care. He still opens and closes on time every day. If there are no customers, he will lie in the rocking chair, looking very lazy. This made the nearby neighbors feel a little disdainful. A young man idling around every day, not doing proper work, and too lazy to do such a thing, he can be called a different kind of person. In the world of cultivation, the most important thing is to be courageous and diligent. People who are too lazy, unless they are the children of immortal emperor clans, are destined to have no future. In particular, most of the people living near this alley are the low-level cultivators of Cold Moon City. There are people with all kinds of cultivation bases, but very few people can be seen in the Emperor realm. This is the current situation of the bottom of the cultivation world. Even if this is the seventh heaven, even if the spiritual energy between heaven and earth is extremely rich, among the hundreds of millions of living beings in the world, only a very small number of people can reach the Emperor realm, 1 in a million. The road to the Emperor realm has 9 heavens, and the higher one goes, the more dangerous it is. On this road, whether or not one can set foot on the peak is another watershed. This also means that the higher the realm, the fewer people can reach this realm. Of course, the seventh heaven doesn't lack peerless great emperors, nor does it lack emperors. After all, the world is too vast and boundless. Just like Hanwha City, they could capture many Emperor Realm cultivators. But relatively speaking, there are many cultivators below the Emperor Realm. For example, the alley where the Cloud Guard house is located in a remote area of Cold Moon City. Most of the people living in the nearby area are cultivators below the Emperor Realm, and most of the customers of the shops in this area are below the Emperor Realm. Therefore, people don't know that the lazy man who is sitting in the Cloud Guard house and is regarded by them as a loafer is actually the Ju-ing emperor ancestor that they look up to. Lin Sun never explained. He hasn't lived and cultivated in such an environment for many years. Whether it is in the vast thousand battle domain or on the way from the first heaven to the seventh heaven, almost all the cultivators he came into contact with were at the same realm as him or at the immortal realm. As a result, in these years, he rarely paid attention to and experienced the cultivation life of people below the Emperor realm. Now, in this Cloud Guard house, watching the bustling people passing by in front of him, experiencing the disturbances in the streets, watching those cultivators running around in search of the great Tao, this feeling is both familiar and strange. It's as if he has been out of the world for too long and returned to the mortal world again. What he sees are all kinds of life on the road of cultivation. The lower 5 realms, the immortal realm, the saint realm, the quasi-emperor realm. Cultivators in each realm have their own pursuits and hardships. All kinds of living beings are intertwined into all kinds of living beings. Chapter 2774. On this day, the morning light shone brightly. Lin Sun opened the door of Cloud Guard house, as usual, placed the rocking chair polished from dragon-shaped wood in front of the door, and then lay lazily on it. His body stretched out, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he seemed to have fallen asleep. His aura seemed to be faintly discernible. The warm and gentle sunlight shone down, causing his handsome face to be suffused with a layer of gentle light. This lazy bum opens the door on time every day, but he doesn't do anything. It's a waste of his good appearance. Haha, to be able to live a carefree life like this, he can be said to be carefree. I originally intended to introduce my niece to him, but this guy is too lazy. I've never seen a young man as lazy as him in my life. How can he achieve anything on the Great Tao like this? In the streets, many neighbors noticed Lin's son, and they were used to it. They discussed for a while and then went to do their own things. Lin Sun's figure remained motionless. Within his body, the various Great Tao profundities were like a vast operating world that circulated ceaselessly, and it displayed all sorts of shocking scenes. All of this was carried out in silence. In his imperial life world, the chaos tree swayed, and ancient traces of chaos emerged and fused with Lin Sun's cultivation, causing the power of the Great Tao he grasped to show a charm of returning to its original essence. The imperial ancestor realm was also called ancestral atavism. The so-called ancestral atavism was the original and primitive meaning. Lin Sun's cultivation had already reached the extreme perfection of the ancestral atavism realm. Others were the ancestor of one Tao, but he could be called the ancestor of all Taos. Every great Tao could derive unimaginable ancestral atavism realm laws. Now, he was only a step away from the immortal Tao, and he only needed an epiphany to be able to rise rapidly. However, he had been waiting for this opportunity for several years. Although he occasionally had a whim, he vaguely caught a trace of a sign. But in the end, it was too vague and ethereal. In the beginning, Lin Sun was quite depressed, but now he had completely let go of it. He was no longer obsessed with it, and he no longer pondered and deduced blindly. The fortune of the Great Tao couldn't be forced. After settling down in Cloudguard House, he put aside all his thoughts and started to experience things outside of the Great Tao. The world was formed by all things and all living beings. This alleyway was a corner of the world. There were the troubles of the world, the faces of all living beings, their own happiness, anger, sorrow, and resentment, as well as their own difficulties and struggles. The affairs of the world were like a torrent, and all living beings were struggling to cross it. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun realized what Xingjia Buddha had said when he tried to prove the Tao. When my Tao is proven, I will understand the suffering of all living beings. This sort of suffering was the difficulty, obsession, and negative karma that no one could struggle free from while walking on the Grand Tao. As long as there was a desire, there would be a stubbornness. Stubborn people were trapped in a cage. But if there was no obsession, it would be easier for one state of mind to become unstable and lost. Therefore, the first 3 stages of the Emperor's Road were Emperor's Heart Disaster. Without attachment to the outside, formless in the body, boundless in the heart. Only by breaking through the difficulty of the monarch's heart could one reach the minute subtlety in the profound opening realm, attain divinity in the ethereal opening realm, and be lawless in the void opening realm. There is no law nor heaven. It was equivalent to breaking free from the shackles of the Great Tao laws of a world. Even if one was placed in a completely different Great Tao law world, one could still cultivate and prove one's Tao. In that case, he would be able to advance to the void refinement, Tao integration, and ancestral awakening. These were the 9 levels of the Emperor's path. On this path, Lin Sun had reached the pinnacle. He had an invincible foundation and transcended the power of the past and present. However, it was clearly not an easy task to break through to this level. Lin Sun didn't know what kind of opportunity other immortals had to prove their Tao. In fact, their experiences were destined to be of no help to him, because on the Great Tao, everyone sought different things. The opportunity to prove the immortal Tao was also completely different. For example, in this world, Emperor's Path legacies were common, but immortal legacies were almost non-existent. This was because the immortal realm involved the mysteries of the various Great Tao laws. The great Tao laws were numerous and of various grades. For example, people at the heavenly longevity realm comprehended different great Tao laws, and the immortal laws they condensed were also different. As a result, the power they could display was also vastly different. Killing a heavenly longevity realm cultivator who had grasped the immortal laws of the earth was far easier than killing a heavenly longevity realm cultivator who had grasped the immortal laws of the heaven. All of this made it extremely difficult for immortals to leave behind any legacies. Even if they did leave behind legacies, they would only be suitable for their own cultivation. For others, they wouldn't be able to use it as a reference. Lin Sun had specifically asked senior sister Jun Huan about this. Jun Huan's answer was simple. This path can only be explored by yourself. Others' experiences and insights are actually a burden. Using them as a reference is more harmful than beneficial. This also meant that to step onto the immortal Tao, one could only do it himself. Lin Sun had thought a lot over the years. He had pondered, and tried to find out. In the end, it didn't help at all. Instead, he fell into a cycle of self-obsession. Therefore, he gave up on everything and cut off his obsession. He no longer thought, no longer pondered, no longer yearned, and no longer sought. Every day, he would lazily lie in his rocking chair and observe the chaos of the world. He would experience what it was like to run around and search for answers. There was a different feeling in his heart. Spring passed and autumn came. Just like that, half a year passed. On this day, a crisp child's voice rang out from afar. A little girl with pigtails said, "Mom, can't you help me pick up the jade hairpin?" No, how old are you? You can't even pick up a jade hairpin? What's the use of your hands?" A woman, who was busy in her shop, scolded her angrily. "But my hands are full of spiritual fruits. If I pick up the jade hairpin, what should I do with these spiritual fruits? Mom, please help me." The little girl named Nua pleaded. "Can't you pick up the spiritual fruits if you put them down?" The woman said impatiently. Nua looked at the red spiritual fruits in her hands and then at the jade hairpin that fell on the ground. She was in a dilemma. At this time, Lin Sun, who was lying in the rocking chair, suddenly laughed. "You can only pick it up if you put it down." The conversation between Nua and her mother was ordinary and sloppy. But for Lin Sun, this conversation was like a thunderclap piercing his ears and enlightening him. It was also like a ray of light piercing through the haze in his heart. "Your mother is right," he said with a smile. Nua was stunned and immediately said fiercely, "Big lazy worm, you are also a big bad guy." Lin Sun said with a smile, "Why am I a big bad guy? You have hands and feet. Can't you help me?" No said angrily. Lin Sun was speechless. He stood up, picked up the hairpin for the little girl, and inserted it into her black hair. Then he rubbed her little head and said, "I really should thank you. Why don't you tell me what your wish is? Maybe I can, to help you realize it." Noah rolled his eyes. "A lazy bum like you still wants to help me fulfill my wish? Save it." As he spoke, he turned around and was about to return to his shop. But soon after, she retreated and stretched out her hands, which were full of red fruits, and said in a clear voice, "Big lazy worm, you helped me after all, so I won't be ungrateful. I'll treat you to a fruit, but remember, you can only choose one." Lin Sun's smile became more and more cheerful. He picked up a bright red and plump spiritual fruit and stuffed it in his mouth to chew. "Ah, this fruit is so sweet." Nua immediately said proudly, "I got up early in the morning and picked this from the mountains outside the city. Only I know about that place. The spirit fruits growing there are big and beautiful, and they are also very delicious. If you want to eat them, I'll take you to pick them tomorrow." Lin Sun shook his head. "I'm not a child. How can I go with you to pick fruits? Don't you see that I have to guard the shop?" Nua rolled his eyes again and said, "You're really a lazy worm. You want to eat the spiritual fruit, but don't want to move. You're hopeless." As he said, he returned to the shop. Lin Sun smiled, returned to the front of the shop, and lay comfortably in the rocking chair. His state of mind was completely different from before. Only by putting it down could he pick it up. Only by giving up could he get the Tao. There had never been a moment when Lin Sun's state of mind was so relaxed and transcendent as if he had seen through a maze and broken a shackle. He couldn't help but want to find Noa Nuwa again and ask her if she had any wishes so that he could help her realize them. But in the end, Lin Sun held back. "I'll help them when I have a chance," Lin Sun thought in his heart. Nuwa Nuwa and her mother opened a shop, which specialized in selling some mountain treasures. They were not precious, but they were common. Naturally, the business was not good. His mother was just a cultivator in the longevity calamity realm. She was busy making a living. The eternal void source crystals she earned were barely enough to sustain her and Nuwa Nuwa's cultivation needs. Their lives were not hard to come by, but they could be considered poor. Lin Sun had seen all of this a long time ago. He even knew that Nuwa Nuwa's father lost his life in a battle a long time ago. Nuwa Nuwa was brought up by her mother from infancy, so the little girl had no impression of her father until now. Lin Sun shook his head and didn't think about it anymore. He began to cultivate, and his chi began to run quietly. Bang! Not long after, the tree of chaos rooted in the life imperial realm suddenly exploded. The trunk and branches turned into countless turbulent torrents of chaos, and then were refined into the life imperial realm little by little. The law of chaos nurtured by the chaos tree had brought immeasurable benefits to Lin Sun over the years, allowing the Grand Tao laws he grasped to be refined to their original essence. But for Lin Sun, the existence of the chaos tree had become an invisible obstacle on his path to immortality. For a long time, Lin Sun had always hoped that the tree would transform with him, and it might turn into an immortal chaos tree in the future. But now, he understood that if he didn't abandon this thought, he would become a burden. Not long after, Lin Sun had a strange feeling. When the tree of chaos was completely refined, he could clearly feel that his life imperial realm was being nurtured miraculously. The entire imperial realm seemed to be filled with a chaotic and heavy aura. The body and mind are free of worries. You can only gain by giving up something. The college entrance examination is over. There will be an update tonight as a reward. Chapter 2775. The chaos tree was very precious, precious enough to make all the emperors go crazy. But at this moment, Lin Sun didn't feel any pain or regret after refining the chaos tree. Instead, he felt relaxed. Tao came from the heart. Law came from the body. Since he'd started cultivating until now, even though his body and mind had carried accomplishments in the Grand Tao that far exceeded an ordinary Grand Tao, weren't the experiences and gains he'd obtained from his past burdens in a different sense? If he wanted to break through, he had to abandon his past experiences and learn from scratch. Only then could he take that new step. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun decided to refine the primordial Tao tree as well. This tree was a supreme treasure from the last epoch. When used with the origin scripture, he could comprehend all the supreme inheritances and Tao profundities from the last epoch. This brought immeasurable benefits to Lin Sun's cultivation. It allowed his cultivation to support 2 epochs, allowing him to look down on those in the same realm. Such a treasure could make even immortals fight to the death for it. Thinking back to when he was in the God's secret realm, many immortals came one after another to fight for the greatest fortune of the last epoch. To Lin Sun, the primordial Tao tree was indeed amazing. It could be called one of the top treasures he had. In the past, he planned to continue comprehending the primordial Tao tree after he reached the immortal realm and experienced the immortal Tao of the last epoch. But now, Lin Sun came to his senses. Learning from the immortal Tao would only bring more harm than good. He had to rely on himself to seek this Tao. Since that was the case, he might as well give it up. He had to completely cut off those thoughts of preparing for a rainy day and let himself be free of worries. Boom! In his life emperor world, green light filled the sky. Thousands of green branches swayed. The primordial Tao tree shook violently and was being refined bit by Lin Sun. This god tree, which could be called the treasure of the last epoch, was cracking inch by inch. Branches fell off and leaves withered, different from refining the chaos tree. Lin Sun spent a whole year to slowly erase the primordial Tao tree, turning it into surging primordial energy that merged into Lin Sun's cultivation. In this year, he stayed in the Cloud Guard house, as usual. He spent most of his time lying in the rocking chair. The neighbors had long become accustomed to it and did not find it strange. No one knew that Lin Sun's cultivation had undergone a silent transformation in the past year. Lin Sun could feel that after absorbing the power of the Chaos Tree and the primordial tree of Myriad Tao, his imperial life realm had undergone a tremendous change. Chaotic and primitive auras seethed and suffused the air. It was like when the world had just been split apart. Within the vast imperial world, the sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, and everything else seemed to have returned to the chaos, and they obtained an extreme form of improvement and nourishment amidst the aura at the beginning of the world. His cultivation did not change. But Lin Sun knew that his cultivation had undergone an incredible sublimation and transformation. The Tao was like the primordial chaos. If one were to say that the ancestral atavism realm was to search for the original mystery of the great Tao, then at this moment, Lin Sun's cultivation was like the most primitive chaos, sitting on the primordial world. At this moment, Lin Sun was completely enlightened. His whole body was light as a feather, just like what Buddhism said about cutting off the fetters of the past. The Great Way was like him, and he was like the Great Way. It was indescribable. In the rocking chair, he quietly opened his eyes. At this moment, the world suddenly darkened, and the rules and aura of the Great Way distributed between heaven and earth stagnated for a moment, as if they were frightened. But it was only for a moment, and then it returned to normal. On the streets, the bustling figures and all kinds of people didn't notice it at all. I am like the Great Way, undetectable. A smile appeared on Lin Sun's face. He leisurely stretched his waist and got up from the rocking chair. My flowers have bloomed. When will the butterflies come? Lin Sun didn't care. For him, the immortal path was destined to walk into a trap in the future. It had been more than a year since he arrived at the Cloud Guard house. There was only more than a year left before the ancestral court of Yuan Church recruited its successor. Lazy bugger. Just as Lin Sun was about to turn back to the Cloud Guard house, a clear voice sounded, and Nuanua, with a braid of sheep horns, ran over quickly. "What's the matter?" Lin Sun asked with a smile. In this year, Nuanua had also grown a lot taller. She had lost her childlike innocence and gained some liveliness of a young girl. Nuanua raised her face and said proudly, "My mother said that she has collected enough money, and she will send me to the Spirit Sword Mansion to cultivate after a while." Lin Sun was stunned. The Spirit Sword Mansion was located in a deep mountain more than 30,000 miles away from Cold Moon City, and it was guarded by several Emperor Ancestor Realm figures. In terms of foundation, it was not even as good as the last immortal force, so Lin Sun didn't care about it at all. But in the eyes of the practitioners at the bottom of Cold Moon City, it was already a great blessing to be able to enter the Spirit Sword Mansion to cultivate. "Then I have to congratulate you," Lin Sun said with a smile. Nuanua laughed and said, "I've just come to tell you that if you are as diligent as me, you can also cultivate. If you are still a lazy bugger, you can't be saved in this life." With that, she turned around and left, adding a different kind of beauty to her lively figure. Young people didn't know the taste of worry. Lin Sun thought for a while and came to the shop opened by Nuanua's mother while she was away. Nuanua's mother was called Gu Yinshan. Although she was dressed in plain clothes, she looked quite beautiful. She ran the shop alone and raised Nuanua, so she was very busy every day. But today, Gu Yinshan sat there in a daze, which seemed very unusual. Seeing Lin Sun come, Gu Yinshan couldn't help but be surprised and said with a smile, "It's really strange that a lazy bugger like you should take the initiative to visit. This is the first time." Lin Sun also smiled. He knew that in the eyes of his neighbors, he was an extremely naughty guy, but he didn't mean any harm. "As far as I know, it will cost a lot to go to the Spirit Sword Mansion to cultivate," Lin Sun said after thinking for a while. It was just a sentence, but it seemed to hit Gu Yunshan's heart. Her expression changed for a while, and she sighed. "Nuanua is already 10 years old. If I don't send her to the Spirit Sword Mansion to cultivate, I'm afraid she won't have a great future in this life. I don't want her to be like me, guarding this shop for the rest of her life. Parents love their children, and they had far-reaching plans. Obviously, Gu Yinshan had already thought about it clearly. She wanted to arrange a good future for Nuan Nua. Lin Sun said, "So, are you going to sell this shop and send the money to the Spirit Sword Mansion?" Gu Yinshan was stunned. "How do you know?" Lin Sun said, "Our two shops are next to each other. A few days ago, someone came to your shop to talk about something, and I happened to hear it." Gu Yinshan looked gloomy and said, "I have no choice. I can't delay it any longer." Lin Sun handed a storage treasure to Gu Yinshan and said, "Nuan Nua has helped me a lot. This is my gift. Don't tell her about it, and don't sell this shop. Otherwise, if Nuan Nua wants to come back in the future, she will be sad if she doesn't even have a home." After that, he turned around and left. Gu Yinshan was stunned. What was wrong with this lazy guy today? When she opened the storage bag, she was stunned. There was an unimaginable fortune in the storage bag. After a while, she recovered from the shock and looked at the door of the Cloud Guard house, only to find that the rocking chair had already been put away. Lin Sun, who was used to lying in the rocking chair and lazing around, was gone. Gu Yinshan picked up the storage bag and hurried to the door of the Cloud Guard house. After hesitating for a moment, she decided to return the storage bag to Lin Sun. The fortune was so amazing that she felt uneasy and worried about gains and losses. Don't refuse. This is for Nuan Nua's cultivation. Compared with this money, Nuan Nua's help is invaluable. Lin Sun's voice came from the Cloud Guard house. "Child, I will return the money. If I can't exchange it, let Nuan Nua return it." Gu Yinshan took a deep breath and said firmly. Half a month later, Gu Yinshan closed the shop and walked out of Cold Moon City with Nuan Nua. After a long trek, they arrived at the place where the Spirit Sword Mansion was located. The Spirit Sword Mansion was built on the top of the mountain, with a magnificent and solemn atmosphere. This made Gu Yinshan a little nervous. It was the first time for her to come to such a big force. "May I ask if you're a fellow Taoist, Gu Yinshan?" In front of the gate, a white-robed old man with a kind face stood there as if he was waiting for someone. When he saw Gu Yinshan and Nuan Nua, he immediately revealed a warm smile and went forward to greet them personally. "Ha! This little girl must be Nuan Nua. She is really beautiful and extraordinary. She will definitely shine brightly on the path of cultivation in the future." The white-robed old man looked at Nuan Nua with undisguised admiration. Gu Yinshan and Nuan Nua were stunned. How did the white-robed old man know their names? Moreover, he seemed to be waiting here specially. Before they could ask, the white-robed old man smiled and invited them to the Spirit Sword Mansion. Along the way, he explained to them all kinds of things about the Spirit Sword Mansion. This made them feel even more confused, and they felt like they were dreaming. This was the Spirit Sword Mansion, the holy land of cultivation in the hearts of countless cultivators in Cold Moon City. But now, they were welcomed in like this. When they came to a magnificent and ancient hall, when the white-robed old man indicated that he wanted to take Nuan Nua as his disciple, Gu Yinshan couldn't help but ask, "Senior, may I ask your name?" The white-robed old man smiled and said, "I'm the master of the Spirit Sword Mansion." Just these words alone caused Gu Yinshan to feel as if she'd been struck by lightning, and she was stunned on the spot. No matter how she racked her brains, she'd never imagined that she and her daughter, Nuan Nua, would actually receive such special treatment. When she walked out of the Spirit Sword Mansion and was on the way back to Cold Moon City, Gu Yinshan, who was in a daze, suddenly thought of someone. Could it be him? When she thought up to here, Gu Yinshan went to the Cloud Guard house as soon as she returned to Cold Moon City. However, to her surprise, the Cloud Guard house was closed, and no one answered after knocking on the door for a long time. Such a situation had occurred in the past. But this time, Gu Yinshan's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. She couldn't help but recall the young man that lay lazily on the rocking chair in the past. More updates. Ask for monthly votes. Chapter 2776. Under the misty white clouds in the sky, a treasured ship flew, crushing the waves of clouds and shuttling through it. "Senior sister, where are we going?" In the cabin, Lin Sun drank from a green gourd and asked casually, to participate in the public selection of Yuan Sect's ancestral court, of course. Jun Huan lay comfortably on a piece of soft and snow-white bee skin like a lazy cat. Her straight and slender legs were crossed on the table, and her beautiful eyes were slightly narrowed, while she didn't care about her image at all. As she spoke, she threw a jade slip to Lin Sun. Take a good look at this jade slip. I'm going to sleep for a while. She turned over, her curvy buttocks and waist arched. Her clothes were pushed up and couldn't cover it, revealing a portion of her delicate snow-white skin. This scene was undoubtedly very erotic and charming. Lin Sun wanted to remind her to pay attention to her image, but in the end, he could foresee that if he opened his mouth, he would be teased again. After calming his mind, Lin Sun looked at the jade slip. In the quiet cabin, Jun Huan was sleeping soundly like a lazy cat. Lin Sun sat in front of the table and read the information in the jade slip. Vaguely, a faint fragrance filled the air. It was Jun Huan's body fragrance, like orchid and musk, refreshing the mind. After Lin Sun settled in the cloud guardhouse, Jun Huan left alone, saying that she wanted to inquire about some information related to Yuan Sect's ancestral court. He was gone for nearly 2 years. A few days ago, after Jun Huan returned, she directly set off with Lin Sun on the treasure ship and left New Moon City. After a long time, Lin Sun put down the jade slip and fell in a deep thought. This time, the news of Yuan Sect's ancestral court recruiting descendants spread throughout the eternal world, causing a sensation and attention in all the major heavens. According to the information Jun Huan had inquired about, this time, there were nearly 100 Juetian ancestors participating in the selection, which could be said to be unprecedented. When Lin Sun saw this number, he couldn't help but be stunned. More than 100 Juetian ancestors. This was simply a shocking number. It should be known that in the 1st to 6th heavens, it was almost impossible to see Juetian ancestors. Even if one appeared, he would be taken away by the major forces of the 7th and 8th heavens in a very short time. In the past, when Luo Chong was in charge of the Luo clan, he had used up almost all of the Luo clan's resources to produce Luo Feng. In this 7th heaven, there is naturally no shortage of Ju-Ing Emperor ancestors, but the number is pitifully small. They could be called rare existences. According to Lin Sun's knowledge, in the 12 Paradise, each immortal emperor clan had at most 1 or 2 Ju-Xie Emperor ancestors. Moreover, these Ju-Xie Emperor ancestors had proven their Dao many years ago, and some had even broken through to become immortal emperors. As for the 36 blessed lands, there had been quite a few Ju Shui patriarchs who had emerged in the past. However, they had to try their luck. Not every generation of disciples could produce someone like that. In other words, even if he searched the entire 7th heaven, he may not be able to gather hundreds of Ju-Ing imperial ancestors. At the bottom of it all, cultivators that had attained such a realm were too few in the end. And the reason why there are hundreds of Ju-Xie Emperor ancestors participating in the selection of a Yuan Sect's ancestral court is that some of them are from the 8th heaven. Jun Huan has been collecting information for more than a year. At present, it is certain that 4 of the 10 immortal emperors of the 8th heaven will participate in this election. These 4 are the Qi clan, Dongwang clan, Mu clan, and Zhongli clan. Among each immortal emperor clan, 6 or 7 Ju-Xie ancestor powerhouses will participate in the selection. Just from the number of Ju Shui's ancestors, it can be seen how big the gap is between the 7th heaven and the 8th heaven. Lin Sun didn't care about this. What he cared about was that each of the 4 immortal emperors participating in this election was actually hostile to him. The Dongwang clan is the backer of the 4 Eastern imperial clans. In the God's secret realm, Lin Sun killed many of the top figures of the younger generation of the 4 clans. The descendant of the Qi clan, Ju-Xie Emperor ancestor Qi Lingyun, is still suppressed in the abyssal sword cauldron. The Mu clan's Ju-Xie Emperor ancestor Mu Yi and the Zhongli clan's Ju-Xie Emperor ancestor Zhongli Shao both died in Lin Sun's hands in the God's secret realm. Under such circumstances, Lin Sun couldn't help but wonder if the 4 immortal emperors also had the intention to target him. In addition to these, The jade slips also recorded information related to the selection of a Yuan sect's ancestral court. This selection will be presided over by a vice pavilion master and 3 elders of the Yuan sect's Yuanqing pavilion. The vice pavilion master's name is Feng Daoping, an immortal at the peak of the Nirvana god realm. This person's temperament is indifferent, and he has always been prestigious. The 3 elders are Dong Wangqing, Xiao Wenyuan, and Li Zhan. When he saw the name Dong Wangqing, Lin Sun's eyes couldn't help but narrow. He didn't need to guess at all. He knew that this elder of the Yuanqing pavilion must be from the Dongwang clan. This is really a bit troublesome. If this old man secretly plays some tricks during the selection, I'm afraid there will be a lot of twists and turns, Lin Sun thought. However, all of this was within his expectations. The 4 ancestral halls transcend the world, but in these countless years, there have been many clansmen from the 10 immortal emperors who entered the 4 ancestral halls to cultivate. Dong Wangqing was clearly such an example. Junior brother, you can rest assured. In the selection of a successor, no one dares to mess around. Even someone like Dong Wangqing doesn't dare to violate the rules of the Yuan sect's ancestral court. Jun Huan had already woken up, turned over, and smiled at Lin Sun with a pair of beautiful eyes. Her voice was soft and pleasing to the ear. The reason why the 4 ancestral halls are so transcendent is because even the 10 immortal emperors have to follow the rules. In the past, there was also a big shot from the immortal emperors. When he was the elder of the 6th peak of the Yuan sect, he didn't hesitate to break the rules in order to fight for the peak master position. But guess what happened to him? Without waiting for Lin Sun to answer, Jun Huan said casually he was killed. The Sky Pavilion, who is in charge of the criminal law, came forward and killed him in front of everyone. After this happened, the immortal emperors behind that person sent people to the Yuan sect's ancestral court overnight. They didn't come to punish him, but to apologize and hope to get the Yuan sect's forgiveness. Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but be moved. Killing an elder and making the immortal emperors behind the elder take the initiative to apologize. The foundation of the Yuan sect's ancestral court is really unimaginably terrifying. Junior brother, what you really need to worry about is how to not be eliminated in the selection. Jun Huan sat up straight, and her expression became serious. Now, everyone in the 7th heaven knows that you will participate in the selection of the Yuan sect's ancestral court. As long as you aren't stupid, you can guess that you will be the target of everyone when the selection begins. Lin Sun nodded. If the selection is done according to the rules, I won't be afraid of being killed. Jun Huan said, I'm just worried that they won't follow the rules. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. Didn't senior sister just say that even the 10 immortal emperors don't dare to violate the rules of the Yuan sect? Jun Huan said, the people of the Yuan sect's ancestral court don't dare to follow the rules for you. But it doesn't mean that the other immortal emperors don't dare to follow the rules. Before the selection ends, those who participate in the selection like you are not the descendants of the Yuan sect's ancestral court. If they use some sinister means in the selection, it will be impossible to guard against them. After a pause, she continued, what's more, I suspect that they will pay any price to kill you. Lin Sun's expression was calm. That depends on whether they have the ability to kill me. Jun Huan suddenly laughed and reached out to poke Lin Sun's forehead. Kid, you must be looking forward to killing when the time comes, right? Lin Sun also laughed. They have been hostile to me for many years, and now they want to stop me from entering the Yuan sect's ancestral court. I'm not a clay bodhisattva. How can I not be angry? If they really dare to do anything during the selection, I don't mind sending them one by one. At the end of the words, a touch of coldness flashed in her eyes. By the way, if I enter the Yuan sect's ancestral court, what about you, senior sister? Will you go? Lin Sun asked. Jun Huan blinked her beautiful eyes happily. Little junior brother, why do you care so much about me? Are you reluctant to let me leave you? Lin Sun's lips twitched. What do you think, senior sister? Jun Huan said matter-of-factly. Of course you don't want to leave me. Is there need to guess? Lin Sun smiled bitterly. What else could he say? In the following period of time, The treasure ship carrying Jun Huan and Lin Sun trekked in the central main region. They were not in a hurry. Occasionally, they would pass by some famous places and go sightseeing. The seventh heaven was different from the other heavens. It was extremely vast, and ordinary people might not be able to walk out of this corner of the world in their lifetime. Even cultivators would feel as if they were just a drop in the ocean when trekking in this world. Time passed day by day. Lin Sun and Jun Huan walked on the road like a couple, traveling between mountains and rivers, passing through prosperous places, galloping above the clouds, and resting under the sun, moon, and stars. Unknowingly, a year had passed. On this day, Jun Huan, dressed in a pink robe with big sleeves, stood on the bow of the ship, looking ahead, and said, "Little junior brother, we will arrive at the shore of the infinite star sea in less than half a month. At this moment, in this situation, what do you want to say to me?" She turned around and smiled sweetly. The infinite star sea had been a forbidden area since ancient times, where the Yuan sect's ancestral court was located. In ordinary times, no one could get close to the strange and mysterious sea at all. This time, the grand meeting of the Yuan sect's ancestral court to recruit successors would be held in the infinite star sea. At that time, the infinite star sea would also be open to the world, and people could enter and exit at will. Lin Sun was stunned and said, "What do I want to say?" Jun Huan corrected him seriously. "What do you want to say to me? Not what you want to say." Lin Sun had a strange look in his eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Do you have to say it?" Jun Huan snorted coldly. "You don't want to say it?" Lin Sun immediately restrained his emotions. After thinking for a long time, he said, "Senior sister, when I enter the Yuan sect's ancestral court, I will help you see if there is a good man worthy of you. You are such a blockhead." Jun Huan poked Lin Sun's forehead with a finger, feeling angry and amused. Chapter 2777. Infinite Star Sea. The waves were vast and seemingly boundless. A myriad of stars seemed to be embedded in the sky, and they were dazzling, causing this mysterious sea to seem like an eternal pure land. This place was like a forbidden area all year round, and it was covered by the mysterious power of order. It was also because the Origin sect's ancestral court's recruitment event was about to be held that the mysterious veil of this sea was lifted. Whoosh! The treasure ship carried Lin Sun and Jun Huan across the sky. Along the way, dazzling and resplendent divine rays of light could be seen everywhere. Some were riding divine birds, some were riding treasure lights, some were riding auspicious clouds, and some were riding bronze chariots for a time. Divine rays of light shot out like rain, and they formed a bustling and clamorous scene in this mysterious sea. But most of the cultivators had only come because of its reputation, and they were purely here to join in the fun. They didn't have the qualifications to participate in the Origin sect's recruitment event at all. Wow, this is the Infinite Star Sea. Oh my God, look, the myriad of stars in the sky, and the starlight they emit is condensed from the purest and primitive aura of the great Tao. Chill. Can you lower your voice? Don't let others think we're bumpkins. Along the way, the clamor rose and fell. Most of the cultivators were like Lin Sun and Jun Huan. It was their first time coming to the Infinite Star Sea. When they saw this magical sea, the shock in their hearts could be imagined. Lin Sun and Jun Huan didn't delay and continued forward. After the time for an incense stick to burn. An ancient city that floated above the Infinite Star Sea and was beneath the sky appeared in their field of vision. This city was simply like a floating land that was bathed in the radiance of the myriad stars. The ancient city walls seemed to be made of divine gold, and they were suffused with a sacred and solemn aura. The divine city of absolute despair. The location of the Origin sect's recruitment was located in this majestic, towering, and ancient divine city. It said that this divine city of absolute despair was built by the founder of the Origin sect himself. Just the types of immortal matter consumed are as many as 10,000, and it's known as the #1 city in the Seventh Heaven region. Now that I've seen it, it really deserves its reputation. Jun Huan sighed with emotion. She and Lin Sun put away the treasure ship and flashed towards the divine city of absolute despair. He just entered the city gate when he saw a bustling crowd shuttling back and forth on the streets like flowing water, and they rubbed shoulders with each other, causing the city to seem extremely bustling and flourishing. On the other hand, numerous strands of divine radiance floated in the sky. They were resplendent and suffused with blazing light, and they illuminated the entire city. As one stood beneath them, every breath one took was filled with the pure and thick primitive aura of the Grand Tao. Everything here seemed to be a bustling market in the mortal world, but in fact, it was a first-class blessed land in the infinite star sea. Even with Lin Sun's experience, he couldn't help being shocked in his heart. The reason was very simple. On one hand, it was because the atmosphere of the divine city of 10,000 Absolute was magnificent, far from ordinary. But most importantly, at the instant he walked into the city, he sensed at least 100 obscure and terrifying auras. Each aura had at least the immortal realm. This was only what Lin Sun could sense at the moment. If those undying beings hidden in the shadows were included, the number would probably be even more. This will also be the place where I, Lin Sun, will truly establish myself in the eternal true world. Looking at the bustling streets, feeling the auras of powerful beings in all directions, Lin Sun's eyes were deep and calm, and he quietly clenched his fists. Entering this city is equivalent to entering the territory of the Origin Sect's ancestral court. Even if our identities are exposed, no one will dare to make a move here, Junhuan said softly. Let's go to the center of the city first. If we want to participate in the selection, we must first obtain a certificate. As he spoke, he led Lin Sun forward. Oh my, that seems to be a legendary golden qilin. Its entire body seems to be made of gold, and it shines with divine light. Its aura is truly terrifying. According to legend, the golden qilin is the guardian beast of the Dongwang clan in the 8th Heaven region. I didn't expect to see it here. In the void, a qilin that emitted boundless golden light flew past. Its body was like a mountain, and its fur was soft and smooth. It sprinkled magnificent golden divine light, causing an uproar. The Dongwang clan. Lin Sun looked over and saw a group of people on the back of the golden qilin. They were clearly the powerful beings of the Dongwang clan. All of a sudden, a terrifying fluctuation came from the sky. An incomparably handsome immortal bird with bright-colored wings glided across the sky. It was also carrying a group of people. Vermilion bird. Oh my God, this is a pure-blooded vermilion bird, an innate god of fire. That's the guardian beast of the Qi clan. In the city, all sorts of exclamations rang out. Roar. Not long after, a thunderous roar shook the sky. Not long after the vermilion bird left, a pure white divine beast with 4 ink-black hooves, a lion's head, and a dragon's beard appeared in the sky. Its entire body radiated a myriad of auspicious lights. Is this a Pishio? It must be. This is the guardian beast of the Zhongli clan. Another uproar broke out on the streets. The Pishio was an innate auspicious beast, an auspicious omen. It was an existence that could suppress the luck of a clan. Now, it had actually become a mount, flying over with a group of people on it. Lin Sun's gaze was calm as he watched this scene. Before he came to the infinite star sea, he already knew that the 4 immortal giants, the Dongwang clan, the Qi clan, the Zhongli clan, and the Mu clan, would participate in the selection of a Yuan sect successor. As they moved forward, more and more immortal birds and divine beasts appeared. All of them were extremely terrifying. Some of them were so powerful that just their aura alone could make people's hearts tremble. Compared to those immortal birds, Lin Sun and Junhuan were extremely inconspicuous. They didn't even have a mortal beast to ride on. However, the two of them didn't care about that at all. 10 minutes later, an extremely unique sword-shaped building appeared in the center of the city. From afar, this building looked like a divine sword that pierced through the clouds. The buildings at the bottom stood side by side, like a broadsword hilt. Above it, layers of buildings rose up, just like the body of the sword. 10,000 Extinction Sword Palace. All those who participated in the selection had to register at the 10,000 Extinction Sword Palace and obtain a certificate. At this moment, in front of the 10,000 Extinction Sword Palace, although the huge dojo was empty, the dojo was already filled with figures. The golden shilin of the Dongwon clan, the vermilion bird of the Qi clan, the Pishio of the Zhongli clan, and other divine beasts were all among them. Taking a glance, with the dojo in front of the 10,000 Extinction Sword Palace as the center, those who occupied the best positions in the surrounding area were all famous, undying forces. Leaving aside the 4 immortal giants of the 8th heaven, there were also the 4 eastern royal clans, Dugu clan, Zhou clan, Luxian clan, and other top forces of the 12 heavens, as well as undying forces from the 36 blessed lands like the Zhuang clan. Every force had an undying existence. Just the aura they emitted was enough to suppress other cultivators, preventing them from approaching. When Lin Sun and Jun Huan's figures arrived, an old voice rang out in the field. The successor of Fong Siyuan, who used to hide like a mouse, actually has the guts to appear in the 10,000 Extinction Divine City. This is really beyond my expectations. This voice wasn't loud, but resounded clearly in the field, suppressing all the chatter. The entire central area of the city fell silent. After that, people saw that the person who spoke was a tall old man with hair as white as snow. He stood beside the divine beast of the Dongwon clan, the Golden Qilin, Eastern Royal Dome, an old peak stage Nirvana god of the Dongwon clan. Following his gaze, people saw Lin Sun and Jun Huan. Lin Sun, this extremely audacious murderer, actually came. The field was in an uproar. Countless people were shocked and had looks of disbelief on their faces. Even the undying emperor clans were shocked, their eyes flashing. If it was any other Emperor Zhu Xian, he wouldn't have attracted too much attention. Because right now, in the vicinity of the 10,000 Extinction Sword Palace, there were groups of Emperor Zhu Xian and undying existences everywhere. Who would pay attention to a single Emperor Zhu Xian? But Lin Sun was different. The young man was like an undying legend. He had started making a name for himself in the great Thousand Battles realm, and up to that moment, he had slaughtered his way to the 7th heaven. He had miraculously survived time and time again, causing the eternal true world to be shaken countless times. And 3 years ago, when the news of Lin Sun appearing in the 7th heaven and participating in the selection of the Yuan sect spread, he attracted even more attention. But no one expected that the successor of Fong Siyuan would really dare to come. For a moment, the field was in an uproar. Almost all eyes fell on Lin Sun and Jun Huan. Who is that beside him? Instant Dao, Sword Dao, is the most outstanding. Besides Fong Siyuan's successor, Jun Huan, who else could it be? At the same time, Jun Huan's identity was also seen through by the major forces, causing quite a commotion. They suddenly became the focus of attention, but Lin Sun and Jun Huan seemed very calm. All of this was within their expectations. In fact, from the moment they left Frost Moon City until they arrived at the Divine City of Absolute Eternity, the two of them didn't hide their identities at all. They didn't even disguise or change their appearances. There was no other reason. There was no need. After all, they were going to participate in the selection of the Yuan sect successors, and their identities were destined to be exposed. Since that was the case, why would they need to cover up? Little junior brother, look at that old thing. His name is Dongwon Qiong. He's at the peak of the Nirvana God realm. Their ancestor's head was once smashed by our master. Jun Huan glanced at Dongwon Qiong, his voice melodious, resounding through the entire field. Now he's shamelessly calling us rats. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Lin Sun laughed. Ridiculous. Dongwon Qiong frowned, his expression turning gloomy. Everyone in the surroundings glanced at each other, and they were extremely shocked in their hearts. Dongwon Qiong represented the Dongwon clan of the 8th heaven. He was one of the most respected figures in the divine palace of absolute eternity. But now, not only was Dongwon Qiong being mocked, even the Dongwon clan behind him was being mocked. The master of Fong Siyuan is dead, and your successor is like a remnant of the world. If not for the fact that you've been hiding all these years, how could you have survived until now? Suddenly, another voice rang out. It was cold, ethereal, and filled with great majesty. Next to the vermilion bird, a beautiful woman in black with white hair tied up in a bun spoke. P.S. Continue to update tonight. Chapter 2778. Chi Tingzi, a Nirvana god from the Chi clan. Dressed in black, her hair was white like snow. She looked like a beautiful young woman, but in reality, she was an antique that had cultivated for who knows how many tens of thousands of years. As she spoke, she attracted the attention of many people present. Junhuan raised his brow. Just as he was about to speak, Lin Sun took out the abyssal sword cauldron and lightly knocked on the cauldron. Lin Sun, kill me if you have the guts. Why do you have to suppress me until now and humiliate me with such despicable methods? It was a cold female voice filled with hatred. It came from the abyssal sword cauldron and resounded throughout the area. In an instant, the expressions of Chi Tingzi and the Chi clan members changed. It's Ling Yun, someone exclaimed. Yes, it's Chi Ling Yun. Back in the god realm, she became my prey and I couldn't bear to kill her, Lin Sun said slowly. Everyone became more and more restless. They didn't expect Lin Sun to be so domineering. He actually held the daughter of the Chi clan leader, Chi Ling Yun. At this moment, Chi Tingzi's expression was extremely unsightly while killing intent surged into his eyes. He said, "Let Ling Yun go, and I guarantee that my Chi clan will let you go during the recruitment event of the Origin Sect's ancestral court." His voice paused with every word like a piercingly cold blade. Everyone felt a stabbing pain in their hearts, and their expressions couldn't help but change slightly. Wishful thinking. Lin Sun casually tossed Chi Ling Yun, who was suppressed in the abyssal sword cauldron, into Jun Huan's hand. "Senior sister, I'll leave her to you. If you're unhappy, take it out on this girl." Jun Huan grinned. "Little junior brother loves me the most." You, Chi Tingzi, and the other Chi clan members were livid. If they weren't in front of the Sword Palace, they would have already attacked. Fellow Taoists, don't be angry over this. In the City of Despair, no one dares to kill. No matter how arrogant these two are, they won't dare to kill Lady Chi Ling Yun. In the distance, an undying from the Zhongli clan said indifferently next to the Pishio. This was a green-robed youth at the Nirvana realm. His hands were behind his back as he stood on a cloud. His eyes were filled with majesty. Zhongli Chong, an old monster that had reached the Nirvana god realm countless years ago. His voice was indifferent. It's very simple to save Miss Chi Ling Yun. When the ancestral court of Yuan religion recruits disciples, Lin Sun will definitely be defeated. After he and Jun Huan leave the city of absolute gods, we'll attack together and suppress them. His voice shook the whole audience, directly predicting the outcome of Lin's defeat. His tone was calm, but his attitude was undoubtedly tougher and more frightening. Chi Tingzi said, "All right, Sai, I suddenly feel a little unhappy." Jun Huan raised his hand and slapped Chi Ling Yun's face. Chi Ling Yun's fair cheek immediately turned red and swollen. The crisp sound of the slap resounded throughout the square and was clearly heard by everyone. This scene caused Zhongli Chong to be unable to help but frown. "Jun Huan, you're courting death." Chi Tingzi was so furious that she almost crushed her teeth from clenching them. Jun Huan chuckled and said, "To put it bluntly, if I were to fight you one-on-one, I would take your life within 3 moves. Unfortunately, I can't make a move here, so I can only vent my anger on this little prey." Slap! As soon as his voice fell, Jun Huan slapped Chi Ling Yun's face again. Chi Ling Yun was about to go crazy after being humiliated and trampled on in front of everyone. She screamed with all her might, but she couldn't make a single sound. It was obvious that Jun Huan had sealed her. "Is your Fangsuan mountain so shameless? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the world?" On the side of the Mu clan, a burly man with hair like a halberd said in a deep voice. His voice resounded like thunder, causing everyone's eardrums to buzz and stars to appear in front of their eyes. Mu Tsangjia, the old monster of the Mu clan at the Nirvana realm. You're all immortal giants of the 8th heaven, but you joined forces to threaten me and my junior brother. Don't you feel shameless? Jun Huan said indifferently. There's no need to say any more nonsense. Everyone knows what's going to happen next. Let's see what happens in the disciple recruitment test. At that time, I'd like to see if your combined strength is able to stop my junior brother's slaughter. These words were simply a declaration of war to all the forces present who were hostile to Fong Mountain. Incomparably domineering. Gathered in the field were the top forces from the 7th and 8th heaven, as well as many cultivators from all over the world. At this moment, they couldn't help but be shocked by Jun Huan's words. Yes, as early as 3 years ago, everyone knew that as long as Lin Sun dared to appear in the selection of the ancestral court of Yuan religion, he was destined to be killed. The scenes that were playing out right now were undoubtedly proving this point. However, no one expected that Jun Huan would directly declare war at this moment. What kind of courage and confidence did he have to dare to say such words? Good. This seat wants to see exactly who wins and who loses in this contest. In the distance, Dongwang Qiong's voice was cold. So many years have passed, but Fong Mountain still can't change its insufferably arrogant way of doing things. In that case, I'll take this opportunity to let the whole world see how the two of you will die. Qi Tingzi's voice was cold, and she didn't hide her killing intent. Others like Zhong Lichong and Mu Songjia also looked cold, looking at Lin Sun and Jun Huan as if they were about to die. This scene made the hearts of the people in the field tremble again. The 4 immortal giants of the 8th heaven had already revealed their undisguised killing intent. In addition, forces such as the 4 eastern royal families and the Zhuang clan who were hostile to Fong Mountain would certainly not stand idly by. Under such circumstances, how could Lin Sun hope to enter the ancestral court of Yuan religion? However, Jun Huan patted Lin Sun's shoulder gently and said, "Junior brother, go to the Wanju's Sword Palace to register first." Lin Sun walked straight to the empty Taoist field and walked towards the Wanju's Sword Palace at the end of the Taoist field. His tall figure also became the focus of the audience. Every single one of them had a different expression. There was regret, there was joy in his misfortune, there was pity, and there was undisguised killing intent. In this regard, Lin Sun's expression was neither sad nor happy, as if he was unaware of it, until he arrived at the Wanju's Sword Palace. In the spacious hall, there were only 4 figures standing there. The leader was dressed in a wide-sleeved linen robe. He was tall, and his gray hair was coiled into a bun. He looked thin, and his eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of life. His aura was tranquil and tranquil. When he saw Lin Sun walk in, he opened his mouth and said with a voice like the morning bell and evening drum, "I'm Fong Daoping, the deputy head of Yuan Qing Pavilion. I will be in charge of this assessment." Junior Lin Sun greets Senior. Lin Sun cupped his fists and saluted. He had long known that Fong Daoping was indifferent and had a high prestige in Yuan Qing Pavilion. Fong Daoping nodded and said, "To participate in the assessment of Yuan religion, no matter who you are, you must follow the rules of Yuan religion. Do you understand?" Lin Sun said solemnly, "Understood." Fong Daoping pointed to the 3 people beside him and said, "These 3 are Elder Dongwang Qing, Elder Xiao Wenyuan, and Elder Li Zhen. There are 3 tests in this assessment, and they will each be responsible for 1 test. Greetings, seniors." Lin Sun cupped his hands. As he spoke, he saw the appearance of the 3 clearly. Xiao Wenyuan looked like a young man. He wore a blue robe and a square scarf on his head. He held a snow-white Rui scepter in his hand and smiled. He had a refined temperament like a teacher. He nodded slightly to Lin Sun and said with a smile, "I've heard of your reputation." Li Zhen had thick bones and bronze skin. His hair and beard were messy, and his whole body was filled with iron-blooded killing intent. Facing Lin Sun's salute, he said in a deep voice, "Remember the words of Deputy Head Fong. In Yuan religion, no matter who you are, you must follow the rules." Dongwang Qing wore a purple robe. His eyes were sunken, his cheeks were long and narrow, and his eyes were cold and frightening. He looked at Lin Sun and said with a fake smile, "Lin Sun, Lin Dao Yuan. I've heard of this name more than once. Now I finally meet you in person." He didn't show any hostility and looked normal. Lin Sun looked calm and didn't show any emotion. He wasn't stupid enough to provoke Dongwang Qing, who had great power. Lin Sun, imprint a trace of your willpower into this nameplate and put it away. This will be the proof of your participation in the selection test. Fang Daoping took out a nameplate and handed it to Lin Sun. Lin Sun did as he was told. Come with me, Xiao Wenyuan said with a smile. Before coming here, Lin Sun had already learned that the selection test was divided into 3 rounds. For the first round of assessment, one would enter a secret realm called the Battlefield of Infinite Despair. At that time, all the Juetian great ancestors who participated in the test would compete in the Battlefield of Despair. As long as they defeated 3 opponents, they could pass the test. The chief examiner of the first round was Xiao Wenyuan. Immediately, Lin Sun followed Xiao Wenyuan to the highest point of the Sword Palace, where the sword point was located. There was a cloud platform here, and it floated amidst the clouds. Standing there, one would be able to see a myriad of stars spread out beneath the sky, and it was a rather magnificent sight. On one side of the cloud platform, there was a whirlpool door. Take this jade slip. Once the assessment begins, the jade slip will display the information of all the experts participating in this assessment. Xiao Wenyuan passed a golden jade slip to Lin Sun, then pointed at the whirlpool door and said, If you enter from here, you will arrive at the Battlefield of Despair. The first assessment will begin in 2 days, and the time limit is 1 month. If you fail to meet the requirements of the assessment within this time, you will be eliminated as well. Lin Sun nodded. Thank you for your guidance. Xiao Wenyuan smiled and waved. Go, familiarize yourself with the situation in the Battlefield of Despair. Lin Sun walked towards the whirlpool passage on one side of the cloud platform. As the space rippled, his figure disappeared. Lin Sun, do you know that your arrival has already caused a lot of trouble in the ancestral court of the Yuan sect? If you are eliminated in the 3 rounds of the selection test, there won't be a good show to watch. Xiao Wenyuan murmured to himself. Although I don't see much chance of winning, I do hope for a miracle. Then, he shook his head with a smile and turned to leave. P.S. Send more updates to me. Chapter 2779. 10,000 Extinction Sword Palace. Seeing Xiao Wenyuan return, Dongwang Qing smiled and asked, What do you think of Lin Sun after meeting him? Xiao Wenyuan was startled. What do you think of him? Dongwang Qing laughed. I'm a member of the Dongwang clan after all. I naturally don't have any good comments about the successor of Fangtuan. This isn't a good time to say anything either. Xiao Wenyuan couldn't help but laugh. Brother Dongwang is honest and straightforward. In my opinion, Lin Sun is a very interesting young man. What do you mean? Dongwang Qing raised his brows. Xiao Wenyuan casually said, During these years, this young man has made enemies with many undying forces. But unexpectedly, he's still living well. Isn't this interesting? Dongwang Qing was silent for a moment before saying, In that case, Brother Xiao thinks that this young man can pass the selection test? Xiao Wenyuan shook his head. I didn't say that. Everyone knows that once the test starts, Lin Sun will definitely become the target of everyone. Under such circumstances, I don't dare to say anything. Dongwang Qing laughed and said, This is within reason. Everyone in the world knows that minuscule mountain is practically the public enemy of the world. Who knows how many forces wish to uproot it? Now, this Lin Sun has appeared openly and wants to join our origin religion's ancestral court. He is clearly using the origin religion's ancestral court as a refuge. After a pause, coldness flashed in his eyes. Perhaps this young man thinks that as long as he becomes the successor of the origin sect, he will be free of worries, and no one will dare to harm him. Xiao Wenyuan frowned. Li Zhen, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. If this young man really becomes the successor of the origin sect, will there still be people who dare to harm him? His bones were thick and his skin was bronze in color. His hair was messy and his eyes were like cold lightning. Once he spoke, he gave off a strong sense of oppression. Dongwang Qing's smile faded, and he said indifferently, That depends on whether he has the chance to become the successor of the origin sect. Li Zhen stared at Dongwang Qing and said, You didn't answer my question directly. As if he was interrogating him, the atmosphere became more oppressive. Dong Wangqing looked straight at Li Jun and said, "Because this question is meaningless. Because Lin Sun has no chance to pass the selection test." It was resolute and decisive. Li Jun stared at Dong Wangqing for a moment before she said, "If you dare to go against the rules and do something shameful, I won't forgive you." Dong Wangqing's face sank as he said, "Li Jun, what do you mean by this?" "All right, there's no need for you to argue about this." Fang Daoping, who had been indifferent like an outsider, frowned and said, "My request for this election is very simple. Do things according to the rules. This is also my personal attitude." Li Jun remained silent. Dong Wangqing nodded and said, "Deputy Pavilion Master Fang, don't worry. I won't tolerate anything that violates the rules." Xiao and Yuan looked at Li Jun, then at Dong Wangqing. He played with the jade scepter in his hand and smiled without saying a word. Before the assessment began, the two chief examiners confronted each other. Lin Sun's arrival had really set off an unexpected storm. However, what was Deputy Pavilion Leader Fang's attitude? Xiao and Yuan couldn't figure it out, but he felt that it was getting more and more interesting. Treacherous waves surged, undercurrents surged. Battlefield of despair. Under the dark blue sky, mountains and rivers rose and fell, vast and boundless. Lin's figure appeared in a canyon. As he appeared, a formless power of rules pressed down on him, restricting his cultivation. However, it did not affect his ability to walk. Before the assessment began, his cultivation would be imprisoned in this way. Lin Sun glanced around and sat down with his legs crossed after a while. In his mind, he recalled all kinds of information about the first assessment. In the assessment, it was forbidden to use the power of rules. It was forbidden to use the forbidden secret treasures and external forces beyond the scope of Ancestor Realm. The nameplate would be the last line to save one's life. If one was killed, one could stay alive. The assessment would last for a month. If one defeated 3 opponents within the time limit, he could enter the second assessment. Among these rules, the only thing that made Lin Sun frown was that after killing the opponents, they wouldn't really die. Instead, their lives would be preserved by the nameplate. Although he was a little reluctant, he still figured out a strategy. If he met an enemy, he would attack his body and break his heart. The higher the realm of cultivation, the more dangerous the disaster would be once there was a problem with the state of mind. For example, Marshal Uncle Kong Ju was crazy and muddle-headed because of the problem with his state of mind. He was in a miserable situation. Like Yin Ji, the pavilion master of Void Pavilion, it was said that because of the problem with his state of mind, he cultivated himself to the point that only his spirit was left. Lin Sun was sure that as long as the opponent's state of mind was broken, he would be a waste if he survived. Even if he could recover and preserve his cultivation, he would never set foot on the path of immortality in this life. However, it was extremely difficult to do this. After all, anyone who could set foot in the Ancestor Realm had a state of mind that was extremely tough and powerful, far beyond ordinary people. For such a person, any means of torture, humiliation, and provocation are doomed to be useless. If I want to break his state of mind, I should give the most fatal blow to his self-confidence and let him live in my own shadow for the rest of his life. In this way, his state of mind will be broken by itself. Lin Sun had made up his mind. Then he stood up and began to walk around the valley to check it out. Although his cultivation was imprisoned, it didn't affect his cognition and perception of everything in the world. 2 days passed quickly. In front of the Wanju Sword Palace, on the huge Taoist field, buzz, a strange fluctuation rolled, and a strange world picture emerged, in which there were vast mountains and rivers, vast and magnificent. It was the battlefield of despair. During this period of time, all the cultivators that had been waiting in the vicinity since a long time ago had stopped talking at this moment, and they'd simultaneously shot their gazes towards the world within the battlefield of despair that had just appeared. The first assessment is about to begin. People who had been looking forward to it for a long time couldn't help but be slightly excited at this moment. After many years, the ancestral court of Yuan's sect, once again openly recruited descendants. Such an opportunity could only be encountered by chance, and it attracted the attention of all the major forces in the heavens. For example, in this grand event, even the descendants of the four major forces of the eighth heaven participated. It was an unprecedented event, and now the first test was about to begin. How many great ancestor, Jew, emperor ancestor would be able to pass? In the quiet and solemn atmosphere, Feng Daoping, the deputy pavilion master of Yuanqing Pavilion, led three elders, Dong Wangqing, Xiao Wenyuan, and Li Zhen, to appear in front of the Wanjua Sword Palace. All of a sudden, they attracted the attention of the audience. Feng Daoping clasped his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "There are a total of 109 emperor ancestors participating in the selection of our Yuan sex descendants. When the assessment begins, everyone present can watch the battle scene that takes place in the battlefield of despair. In other words, everyone is also a witness of this assessment. My attitude is very simple. No matter who it is, no matter what their origin or background, if they cheat or violate the rules of the assessment, they will be expelled immediately." His words were like the morning bell and evening drum, resounding throughout the audience, making everyone's heart tremble. Act according to the rules. This was Feng Daoping's attitude, the attitude of the Yuanqing Pavilion, and the attitude of the Yuan sex ancestral court. As his voice fell, Feng Daoping nodded at Xiao Wenyuan. Xiao Wenyuan immediately stepped forward and gently threw the jade scepter in his hand. Floating high up in the sky, the world of the 10,000 despair that was unfurled like a painting, ripples started to surface at this moment. Immediately after, the figures of 109 emperor ancestors participating in the assessment appeared in the battlefield of despair, scattered in different parts of the world like messy chess pieces. All of a sudden, there was a commotion in the audience, and voices of discussion rose from all directions. "Look, that's Dongwang Shaoan, the most tyrannical emperor ancestor of this generation of the Dongwang clan. He's known as the Qilin of the eighth heaven and has a terrifying forbidden ability. It's said that he once crossed a realm and killed an immortal. That person is Qi Qingshi. Ever since she stepped into the ancestor realm, she has never been defeated in 10,000 battles. She's an extremely stunning fairy in the eighth heaven. Did you see that? That's Mu Zunwu, the only one above the great Tao. An invincible and terrifying existence." All kinds of discussions resounded, and the audience was also in heated discussion. Each of the 109 emperor ancestors participating in the assessment this time can be said to be a heaven-defying existence in the same realm, each with their own monstrous power and prestige. In the past, they would be the most glorious existences in the major heavens, like the sun in the sky, shining alone. But now, they are all gathered in the battlefield of despair, about to stage a peerless competition. How can people not be excited and look forward to it? On the Emperor's Road, the ancestor realm is invincible. Now, a group of emperor ancestors have gathered and are about to compete and discuss the Tao. Such a grand occasion is rarely seen in thousands of years. Some old antique sighed and sighed with emotion. Lin Sun's figure also attracted a lot of attention, even far more than the other examinees. Because everyone knows that when the assessment begins, Lin Sun is destined to become a target and will be killed by those enemies. The assessment begins. Xiao Wenyuan shouted, his voice resounding through the whole audience. Almost at the same time, the experts scattered in different areas of the battlefield of despair all noticed that their cultivation base that had been imprisoned was restored at this moment. This means that the assessment has begun. In the valley, Lin Sun abruptly opened his eyes for meditation. He stood up and glanced around, his moon-white robe fluttering in the wind. A surging murderous intent surged from his heart. He did not conceal himself, nor did he conceal any aura on his body. With his hands behind his back, he stepped out of the valley, upright and above board. In the past years, he had been hunted by many hostile forces and was slandered as a remnant. No matter where he went, he had to hide his traces, suppress his murderous intent, and keep a low profile. Even in front of the Sword Palace of Despair, he and senior sister Junhuan were repeatedly provoked and ridiculed by those hostile forces. But from now on, in the territory of the Yuan sect's ancestral court, in the battlefield of despair, he would no longer hide his strength like before.